For the 6th time in a row, the Michelin Le Mans Cup finale will be completed, taking place here at Portimão, the Algarve International Circuit. And what a fabulous place it is to visit on the Atlantic coastline. And Portimão itself as a city is right on the beach, beautifully placed. The track is probably about 15-20 minute drive inland. And it can mean, because we're slightly higher up, therefore, that we get some blustery conditions with the weather rolling in. Well, certainly the first 2 days of this meeting have been glorious, with temperatures in the mid to late 20s. Not necessarily for this morning, but there is a hint that we might get some rainfall later on this afternoon in time for the final European Le Mans Series race of the season. But we have 1 hour and 50 minutes of the Michelin Le Mans Cup to get out of the way, first of all, with a championship to be decided in GT3. We know the team that will win, but there are basically 3 different cars that could potentially snatch the title. So there's where we've been, Le Castellet in April to Imola, then the 2 Road to Le Mans races, Monza, Spa, and here at Portimão. And every step of the way, me, Johnny Palmer, and Graham Goodwin of the dailysportscar.com have been there. Some of the bigwigs down on the grid there, Fred Lucan chatting of Total Energies. Romain Aubry, I noticed, with an early morning conversation, and it is early morning.
It is early morning. Good morning, everybody, and good reason for Total Energies to be here, because the H24 car, the demonstrator hydrogen electric drive racer, is here, and we'll start towards the back of this grid. Not quite at the back. We've got a couple of cars failed to complete a lap for red flag reasons. This is the 4.65 kilometre circuit here at Portimão, and a fabulous track it is, Johnny.
Yeah, you know, I've been searching for the crucial statistic for me, which is the elevation change. It's massive, but nobody seems to know the answer. The first corner is the lowest point, turn 11 is the highest point, and you cover an awful lot of gradient change in the meantime. 3 very different sectors. The first one's all about straight line speed, really, apart from turns 1, 2 and 3, but you need to be good on the main straight and then on the brakes into turn 1, and that run out of 4 down to 5. Then the second sector is about good drive out of slower speed corners to head up and down Dale, and then out of the final few corners, it's quite a technical section. The fast-flowing turn 15, though, bringing everybody back onto the main straight. These cars will have to pit once, as per the regulations, in order to do the driver change. And there are drive times to be adhered to. We're looking at GMB Motorsport. Now, one of their 3 cars, either the 44, the 55, or the 88, I think, can still just about win it. Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
So they're all within mathematical chance of taking the title. What we do know, though, Graham, is that GMB Motorsport, in some form, will be invited to the 24 Hours of Le Mans next June for the centenary edition.
We do know that. We also know, though not quite public yet, what they'll be doing. I believe they'll be back at Le Mans with an Aston Martin, and that we'll see them back in the European Le Mans Series in that car. This is, by the way, is the 51 Ferrari, and something of a revelation in qualifying yesterday, Johnny. With the 2 Japanese drivers. We'll see Kai Cozzolino a little later, but qualifying well up on their debut here. It's a revised crew. Alexander Talkanitsa Jr. there on the right-hand side, with team manager from AF Corsa, been looking after the AT racing car. And yes, I think we'll also see at least one of these Hondas back in the Michelin Le Mans Cup next year, and I've zero doubt with an all-Danish crew. Yep. Very proud Danes indeed. Here's one of our 2 guesting cars here, and finished well up in qualifying as well. Gunnar Jeanette will be a familiar name to sports car racing fans around the world. PJ Hyatt, again, another, that's Gunnar there with his hands on the rear wing. PJ just suiting up. Another surprise sprung in qualifying. PJ right up at the sharp end, and will start on the front row in GT3.
Yeah, really only started in anger in motorsport this year with the Porsche Carrera Cup North America, and also competed here at Portimão in the 24 Hours in a Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car. So has it track experience at least. Whether the Schnitzelarm team, Gunnar Jeanette and PJ Hyatt, will be seen within this championship, maybe moving into next year, that remains to be seen. But the 55 car took a 2nd pole position of the season, courtesy of Christian Poulsen. Yes, that Christian Poulsen, who was a driver's champion in the 2014 FIA World Endurance Championship for Aston Martin with David Heinemeyer Hansen rather, and he drove with Christopher Nygaard. Nygaard missed a couple of rounds along the way, and that's an indication of the difference within the points as well. 55 moving to 94 yesterday, which is now a gap of 18 points back to the second place car in the championship, car number 44.
Yeah, basically the 55 car, if it finishes, it is the championship winner.
Yeah.
That's the Rubicon there, if you like. So it's reasonably simple for them, but they'll want to win it. They want to win it. It's been a kind of proud effort from the GMB team, which, by the way, back at home in Denmark, are already championship winners this year in the National Touring Car Championship.
No shortage of ceremony down there on the grid, and I'm pleased to say there's plenty of personnel there as well. The grid walk for the ELMS will be much more populated with fans able to go out onto the track to see the cars up close, and that will be right after the grid walkabout, where autographs can be obtained from favourite drivers. All drivers must attend that in between the two races. It's quite a tight turnaround, actually, because this race won't be done till about 10 to 5 to 11, and then the ELMS cars will be released at about midday onto their grid, with the build-up, our build-up, beginning at 12:40 for a 1 o'clock start local time.
Work our way up through the LMP3 grid now. That's the 13 car, the again by T2 Racing. Mark Basseng there. We'll see later on the race. Peter de Curtens will take the wheel of the 13 Duqueine to start the race. Tense moments for these crews. That's the pole-sitting car, by the way, the W10 Racing number 11 Duqueine. Another great qualifying session, both here in the Michelin Le Mans Cup and notably in the ELMS, where there were real dramas yesterday. AT Racing 13th on the grid for the father and son squad of Alexander Talkanitsa and Alexander Talkanitsa Jr.
Yes, and they both are the AT within AT Racing team, have long been the title of that crew. Racing Spirit of Le Mans possibly a little disappointed with their qualifying for one of their cars, but the other one was well up there, and of course the one car that Alexander Matchell drives already champions with Tom Dillman, so that's been decided.
But watch behind as well as we work through this. This is Jack Wolf and Josh Skelton. Watch for them. They've been right up at the sharp end, and the second of the Racing Spirit of Le Mans cars had not had a lot of racing luck this year, but Josh Skelton in particular showing real pace behind the wheel of that Ligier. And there's plenty of other talent as we work our way through and into the top 10, the top 5 rows of this grid. Visit Portugal, it says. Do so. Fabulous place, lovely people. David Drew has spent his season this year with a mix of LMP2 and LMP3 racing. This is the 11th place car, the 28 MV2S for SD Racing, the orange livery car. And MV2S bringing two very neat and tidy looking Ligiers to the effort this year. They've been right up at the sharp end.
Well, Jerome de Sadalier actually took a pole position earlier in the campaign at Imola, so clearly the 29 car goes well. Jerome will be starting from the second row in this final race of the season. We'll get to the leading contenders from qualifying yesterday and then try and assess whether they can stay there. But the 14 car, which is one of a couple of DKR engineering machines, big drama, unfortunately, yesterday for the second of those, the number 3, causing a red flag, so all the times were taken away from John Brownson. He'll start right at the back of the field, but Alexander Bukantsov will start on the outside of the 5th row. And now we're concentrating on Maurice Smith, who's going to be installed in the number 69 Cool Racing car. These are the other team in the mixture for the championship, but they are 19 points adrift. So it's pretty tight.
Daniel Schneider, Andy Merrick will crew the number 32 United Autosports car, one of 4 on this grid for United Autosports, 3 of them in the traditional red, white, blue livery, and then the black and white car, the Revere Coffee car, Daniel suiting up, and we'll see him back next year in the LMS in LMP2.
Yes, exciting times. I was getting ahead of myself there. Maurice Smith is in a championship contention, but that's in the ELMS. We, of course, have already decided the LMP3 champions in Michelin Le Mans Cup as Pierre Fillon chats to 1 or 2 more members of the scrutineering team, I think.
That's Yannick Dalmas on the right-hand side. That's 4 times Le Mans winner Yannick Dalmas, the race director's driver advisor and all-round superhero.
Yeah.
Yannick is, I think I would politely term, a dude.
He looked like a dude, I have to say.
He's a dude.
Yeah, I mean, these are very smart ELMS race suits, but he certainly can carry that off very candidly indeed. The 30 car from Fricadelli Racing is also in position on the grid. They will start with Klaus Aberlan to begin from 25th place on the grid.
It'll be Felipe Larza to take that car over, the car in the infamous Nürburgring livery. Nielsen Racing, number 7, the defending champions. Their championship, I'm afraid, has gone, but it will be Tony Wells and Colin Noble aboard the number 7. They will want to finish on a high in a season that has dealt them a couple of body blows. But as always, the Nielsen car presented beautifully. So the ELMS teams working hard in the garages. Their day is coming a little later. There is the Total Energies car, and Stefan Riquelme, Monegasque driver, will race throughout this race. This car is not going to be a contender for overall honours. It's about the technology, and you can see some clues there with some of the challenges of the technology. Massive air intakes for the cooling required for that tech. Back to the front, what a great qualifying performance from Team Tour. Odin Gudmundsson, he'll share with Michael Markussen, the Icelandic driver, with the volcano in his back garden, almost literally.
Yeah.
Great to see them back with the support this year of high-class racing.
So
Freddie Hunt.
Yeah, Freddie on then the second row. Just give you an idea of Team Tour's time, though, 1:39.6. That's possibly a season's best qualifying to be in 6th position. But yes, Freddie Hunt with the instantly recognisable helmet design for Reiter Engineering. Freddie starts on the inside of row 2.
This is the number 40 Graf Racing car, Louis Saint-Juan, David Drew. They've been quite a potent pairing as well through this season. It will be Louis Saint-Juan to take the start for Graf. We'll see them back again next year and gather as well in the Asia Le Mans series. So it'll be good to see them with, I think, a second, maybe even a third appearance in the Asian series for the proudly French team, long-established French team. Quick look there at Alexander Matchell, ready to go. This is the number 29 MV2S Forestier Racing team, the green-based livery for Louis Rousset and Jerome de Sadelier. And Jerome has been quick all season. You were saying yesterday in qualifying with real success in radical racing in the UK and beyond, Johnny. And that served him well in the LMP3 format. And I think we'll be seeing a lot more of him too.
Yeah, let's hope so. I would imagine, having not actually caught up with him recently, that he's enjoyed his season so far, particularly the start of it, where they finished second at Ricard and, as mentioned, took the pole position at Imola with Louis Rousset, but unfortunately they couldn't convert that pole into a result. It was a DNF in the end for our first visit to Italy. Back to Reiter Engineering we go. We'll get Mad Seilerhaug in the car about half distance, but it's Freddie Hunt to start things off. Couldn't quite complete the hat-trick yesterday with 3 pole positions in a row, but was pretty close to it, starting right behind the pole sitter, in fact. Yeah,
he's been pretty focused all year, hasn't he? And these LMP3 cars do suit Freddie's driving style without a shadow of a doubt. He's grown in confidence and the speed has come. And for me, Johnny, Mad Seilerhaug has been one of the revelations of the season. These are our championship winners and our front row starters in the number 10 Racing Spirit Le Mans Ligier. Alexander Matchell, it will be Tom Dillman. We will see later on. They've secured it before the final race. An excellent season for the number 10 crew, and they'll be trying to finish this on a high as well. The slight problem for them is there are 30 other cars that would like to stop them from doing that.
Yeah, but Tom Dillman has proven to be a very strong co-driver to Alexander Matchell, but Matchell could not fend off Torsten Kratz, who took a second pole position of the season yesterday in the number 11 car, and it's a question now as to whether WTM Racing, Wochenspiegel Team Monschau, which is a team you may well know if you follow the NLS, the Nürburgring Nordschleife, and indeed the 24 hours of the Nürburgring. They're based in Monschau, the team, so just up the road, although it's Rinaldi-run crew. The team that is run by, or the newspaper ownership of Georg and Leo Weiss, have strong connections with this team. A wave from Torsten Kratz, and he will start well. I can imagine him still being the leader at the end of the first lap, for instance, and then it's a question of just trying to build those foundations early on and extend the lead. We also have a few guest cars, Graham, in the GT3 category. Yeah,
65 Team Parker Racing car there as we get 1 minute board and the engine start signal goes. So Team Parker Racing, it'll be Nick Jones that starts that car. Scott Mulvin we'll see a little later, more familiarly seen in the British GT Championship, which itself has got its season finale this weekend. Good luck to everybody involved in that. Stay safe and be fast, chaps and chapesses. But they've chosen to come here, and that might well be a sighting effort around a revised programme for Team Parker Racing for 2023. Engines are fired up, Johnny. Tensions begin to rise. This could be an absolute cracker.
15 seconds to the start of the formation lap.
So we will get intermittently messages from our race director, Fayez Ramsey Fayez, as well.
5.
Here is his voice counting us down to the formation lap.
1. Green flag, green flag. This is the start of the 4 hours of Portimão Michelin Le Mans Cup race.
So, not quite the start, because the clock will begin counting down in another 4.6 kilometres, but a chance at least to get some tyre temperature building up, because it's a relatively chilly morning when the sun's not been up for that long. In fact, we were on air at 8:40 local. This race billed for a 9 o'clock start. I think just about the earliest start we've ever had.
Struggling to get away here.
Jones's Porsche not moving, and how long do you wait when you're Stefan Rakelmi? Well, about that long, really, because you don't want to miss out on the formation lap. And unfortunately, Nick, if everybody goes past him, will not be able to take his rightful position on the grid. The bonus, I suppose, is that he was going to be starting 35th anyway, so he could just tuck in behind Stephen Patrick, assuming the car starts. Torsten Kratz with the second pole position of the year, then with WTM Racing. He shares that car with Leo Weiss, starting alongside the championship winners, Alexander Matschel for Racing Spirit of Le Mans. Then it is Reiter Engineering and MV2S Forestier Racing for Freddie Hunt and Jerome de Saudelier. Louis Saint-Juan and Auden Gudmundsson come next. Then Tony Wells on the inside of Mo Smith, Nielsen Racing and Cool Racing, respectively. Daniel Schneider, the Brazilian for United Autosport, starts 9th alongside Alexander Bukantsov, the first of 2 DKR engineering cars. Nick Jones now being pushed off the grid, so might have to start from the pit lane if they can get the car started at all. A little further down the grid, there's Peter de Kertens for Hegerli by T2 Racing. Team Virage with Antonio Forne alongside Pietro Peccinini. His teammate Kai Aski is one to watch when he takes over. Mark Crader for Optimum Motorsport, and the second of the United Autosports machines comes next. Then it's ANS Motorsport for Jonathan Brossard and John Showerman also for United. Nathan Kumar for Team Virage alongside Crichton Lentudis in the AF Corsa run Greek liveried machine. Andres Latour also for United there on the next row. Klaus Abelan for Fricadelli Racing we've mentioned, alongside Steve Parrow in now Aligier for Rinaldi Racing. Stefan Rupp for French squad Graf Racing alongside fellow French squad Edex Sport. And the Lafargues 24/7 Motorsport Andrew Ferguson with John Melson for company. Then the pole sitter in GT3 is Christian Poulsen in the 55 GMB Motorsport Honda, and has alongside the Schnitzelarm Racing PJ Hyatt driven Mercedes. It's a Ferrari and Honda second row in GT3. The Nick Jones Porsche not in position alongside Lars Engelbrecht Pedersen in the 88 car. Then the H24 hydrogen powered machine of Stefan Rakelmi starts alongside John Brownson, who had all his times deleted for causing a red flag. The same goes for the Bullet Racing Aston Martin that will be started by Valentin Haas-Clos, and that is as part of the regulations, because if you haven't posted any times, then the more experienced driver has to start. However, Stephen Patrick is on our graphic. Yeah. And the Valentin name was on the TV graphic. So it remains to be seen.
Did notice, by the way, as they come round under the control of the safety car, there was not a lot of urgency around that Porsche. So whatever's gone wrong, I'll kind of keep my fingers crossed. It might just be team members having to make their way from the other end of the pit lane.
Yeah.
But let's hope that Team Parker Racing get that car moving.
Well, he had a very big spin in qualifying yesterday, which flat spotted the tyres, had to come in and get a new set, but that I'm sure is not linked with the issue today. So for the moment, 38 cars are heading out of turn 15. The pace car will dive to the right and into the pit lane. And for the final time this year, and to decide the championship for the drivers in the GT3 category, we are about to go racing in the Michelin Le Mans Cup, the 2022 finale. Drama at the back with an awful lot of smoke, I think, from John Brownson. We do get going, though, now, and it is a good getaway for Torsten Kratz, who deliberately runs Alexander Matchel a bit wide, and up the inside will go Freddie Hunt for Reiter Engineering. More tyre smoke from mid-pack, and I'm just trying to work out whether anyone has looped it even before turn 1. Lots of different speeds coming out of 1 and 2, and a jostle for position between third and fourth place car. That's Jerome de Sadalier trying to pounce whilst the iron is hot to make a better start than Alexander Matchel, who is out of rhythm, having already been overtaken by Freddie Hunt to the inside. Freddie starting, of course, from the second row, but he's already in second position.
Yeah, Matchel managed to fend off that attack, but it needed a bit of spirit to do so. They're still jostling as they come out of turn 5 and up the hill. It's Freddie Hunt at the moment. He's on the hunt, isn't he? And already beginning to look to find a way around the race leader. Race starters under investigation. It'll be interesting to see a different angle on what happened at the rear of that grid. It seemed that somebody was caught out, and caught out pretty badly. Would say, by the way, the Porsche looked to be ready to go. Was at pit exit and will only be allowed to start after this first racing lap now.
Yeah, that's part of the regulations as well. If you start from the pit lane, it has to be a lap down to make sure that you avoid a turn 1 crash, basically. The last thing we want to be doing is releasing a car from the pit lane straight into that. So it's unfortunately a bit of double bubble penalty, but Nick Jones, for whatever reason, couldn't get the car away from the line. If it runs in the race, then Scott Mulvern will do the second stint, but there's a long way to go before we can think about B drivers taking these cars over. Torsten Kratz, as I thought, is able to lead the first lap in the Duquesne for WTM Racing. He leads by 0.8 of a second from Freddie Hunt, who started from the inside of the second row. Alexander Matchel has weathered that storm, did not allow Jerome de Sadalier by, as Graham mentioned, although they are close again at turn 3. So that's the third and fourth place battle, then a gap back to Tony Wells. And at the end of the first lap in GT3, Christian Poulsen in the 55 Honda just about hangs on to the race lead. That was the 44, I think, almost coming to blows with John Brownson.
That was one of the Virage cars. That was that was
right,
72.
Yeah.
So 72, I think, did come to blows. I think there was a bit of contact there with Nathan Kumar, slow starting in the Team Virage number 72 car. And the Schnitzel AMG also almost involved there with PJ Hyatt, but it seems everybody's escaped unscathed. We have got the 73 TS Corsa car in the pits, and it looked to me like the 65 car was being signalled away from starting this race. So TS Corsa have pitted with Pietro Peccinini at the start of this race. I think what that's about is to try to allow the TS Corsa car out, not to tell the 65 car it can't start.
Yeah, okay. Well, and off for the ANS Motorsport car of Jonathan Brossard. I was just about to say, maybe if the Porsche guys at Parker are still having issues with starting the car, the last thing they want is to compromise TS Corsa. I thought that might have been at turn 11.
There was another car involved there. A yellow car, maybe the other Virage car.
Okay, yeah, there are several of those machines in this race, but Jonathan Brossard is going to have to find it, or will find it very, very tricky indeed to get the car now out of that gravel. Clearly there's been an incident between Jerome de Sadalier and the car that's in the pit lane, Pietro Peccinini, in the first lap. So that might be the reason why Peccinini has had to pit, if he's carrying damage. But the incident now under investigation at turn 3.
Peccinini was some way down though. That seems a very odd call. Still side by side, because we saw Jerome de Sadalier was involved in the battle with the number 10 car.
Yes, he was.
I think that's a misidentification.
Maybe. And have they, well, it's either the 10 or it's the 7 of Tony Wells. But there was certainly, a a lot of cars out of position at the start, struggling to go through. We're going to go safety car in order to recover Jonathan Brossard's machine from turn 11 safely. And I did think that was going to be rather tricky because the snatch vehicles aren't based on that side of the circuit from memory. So they will have to arrive in force in a moment or two. And generally speaking, to go safety car at this point, you're not massively affecting the race. We've not even done 5 minutes yet, but that is the reason why.
Yeah, and unable to remove the car from the gravel. The inevitability there with the car in the line of fire is that we're going to require that intervention. So it will collect the field back up.
Yeah, Peccinini started 16th, whereas
the
Sadalier started 4th. So, yeah, okay, if we go with the 73 because it's in the pits, as in that number's correct, but it's not the 29, it must be another car with a similar number, perhaps, that has been spotted. And this is entirely unrelated, although I'm sure this incident will be looked at as well because there was another car involved too, which unfortunately put Jonathan Brossard
There's a yellow car
off the
there
road.
just emerging.
But there's also one in the tyre smoke, I think, which we didn't grab a glimpse of. And
so I think there's been an incident before we've got to the point where that car's left the road.
Yeah.
Safety car then has picked up the race leader. Let's watch the replay. That's the incident at the back. That was
Brownson
getting caught out, I think, by the cars not starting as quickly as he thought they were.
Now look mid-pack, there's the TS Corsa car, which, does that pile into the back of some machines that are going slower as it goes through shot? It's the dark green and day-glow yellow.
Turn 3, we're told.
Okay, and there was more tyre smoke there too. It's definitely not Jerome de Sadalier in that case.
Difficult
and
to pick
TS
out
Corsa went wide, but there we go. It's Mark Crader. I wonder whether it might be the 20 car. It's 2-0, I think, rather than 2-9. So Mark Crader in the Optimum Motorsport
So Mark had
car.
lost it, hadn't he? Because he was sideways across the road.
And clearly...
But was he hit?
Well, indeed. So we can now take Jerome de Sadalier out of the incident that's being investigated.
It's all right, Jerome. You're safe.
Yeah. You're in a safe position in 4th. I'm not necessarily sure I'll call it safe, actually, because Tony Wells is well and truly revved up to try and get the position. And Auden Gudmundsson, after a cracking qualifying yesterday, still there in 6th as we run behind the safety car in the Team Tour 77. But it's a Duquesne that leads.
Well, there's a good news. That car has been recovered to the track.
Yes.
So will be, by the look of things, able to rejoin this race.
But now going, I think now 2 laps down.
We'll add, by the way, that neither the TS Corsa car nor the Team Parker Racing car has been able to rejoin this race.
Yeah.
Incident involving number 6 is under investigation. That is the Jonathan Brossard car. That one, of course, is at the back of the running pack now and will be allowed to rejoin at the back of this safety car train. By the look of things.
Yeah, but as I say, with 1 lap and possibly 2 laps now off the pace, unfortunately, for Jonathan. And car number 6 is listed in the investigation. We don't yet know, and by that suggestion, race control don't know the other cars that were involved.
Yeah.
A wry smile there from the man.
Moody Magnussen's shot, and then the trademark smile broke through.
It did.
That'll be familiar to anybody at Corvette Racing, I'm sure, in the...
Yeah, so we will be able to catch up with Magnussen as Jonathan Brossard swings from left to right to try and loosen the gravel as much as possible from the car. Let's head to Hayley Edmonds for the first time today.
So I'm joined here by Jan Magnussen. I'm not sure if anyone can hear me. Is the sound okay? Great. Great to have you here at the Michelin Le Mans Cup, firstly. How did that kind of come about?
Change a driver in mid-season and gave me a call and to see if I wanted to do the last couple of races. So it's a good opportunity. I love being with the team. I love being here. This track is absolutely fantastic. Quickly becoming one of my favorites in Europe.
So yeah, I mean, they're doing extremely well at the moment. What's it like to kind of jump on board and join the team like GMB Motorsport?
That's always exciting to try a new car. I never drove the Honda before. But also to work with a new team. I've worked with quite a few of these guys before back in Denmark. We used to be competitors back in Denmark in touring cars, but now it's great to be here. Yeah, it's a great team. I think they have a bright future ahead of them with whatever they do.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jan Magnussen coming through loud and clear, chatting to Hayley Edmonds, who's going to have a busy day dealing with drivers from Michelin Le Mans Cup and the European Le Mans Series a little bit later on. From our drone footage, this was the start of the race then at 9 o'clock on the dot, with cars, well, having to check up in places. Look out for John Brownson leaping on the brakes. We'll get more of an idea, I think, of the TS Corsa incident perhaps as well. That's running wide. Mark Crader, does he have his incident all on his own in the white car, which is just heading up through turn 2 now and then into 3, leaps on the brakes and loses the car.
Absolutely, he does.
And then into the side. Pietro Peccinini has absolutely nowhere to go.
Yeah, so basically it was a bottleneck turn 3. Car in front of him, in fairness to Mark, almost stopped.
Yeah.
Mark had not very many places to go, lost it under braking. You're quite right, that was it was game over from there, wasn't it?
And understandably, because of the damage done, we're going to go back to green, by the way, at the end of this lap. With the damage done, Peccinini then limping along the track between turn 4 and 5, and it took a long time to get him into the pit lane, still sitting there, which is a real shame, because I was massively looking forward to seeing 16-year-old Kai Aski, as all of a sudden Torsten Kratz doesn't get away. There's a massive shot though for Jérôme de Sadelier. The front of the car absolutely destroyed, and that was, it looked like Reiter Engineering's car, Freddie
It's
Hunt.
not over, it's not over.
Absolutely a massive pile up here, which is not what we wanted to see at the end of the year in the Michelin Le Mans Cup, but it's Jérôme de Sadelier's massive incident which will be the car that is most badly damaged. What happened was Torsten Kratz didn't go for the restart.
Indeed.
And it looked like Freddie Hunt thought, right, well, I'm going to overtake then. Hang on a minute, I can't do that because we haven't reached the control line. Massive confusion, and that has caused a huge shunt at the restart. We're straight back into a safety car, needless to say, and now concern, of course, for Jérôme de Sadelier.
Door is open on that car.
Well, I will say these LMP3 cars are built incredibly strongly, and actually the nose is designed to deform and detach as it has done. The safety cell will
It's a red flag. It's a red flag, and that will be because, 1, we've got a major incident on the start-finish straight. 2, there is so much debris.
Yeah, and
so it's a
there
red
may
flag.
have been an option to bring the cars through the pit lane, but I don't know what sort of debris ended up over the other side of the wall as well, because unfortunately there were wheels off and various other bits of large car bodywork which was being flung left, right and centre. A confusing moment which unfortunately escalated into a horrible incident to witness, and now the medical crews will be rushing to the scene, certainly of Jérôme de Sadelier.
Watch again. It was... he had nowhere to go. He had nowhere to go. It was Freddie Hunt, you're quite right, checked up because he couldn't pass the race leader. Number 10 then moved to the side to avoid Hunt, and Jérôme de Sadelier had absolutely nowhere to go. He'd anticipated a restart, and...
But I don't know why Torsten Kratz was going so slowly.
No, me neither.
So Torsten Kratz seemingly, I mean, yes, it's your job to dictate the pace, but really when you're that close to the control, exactly, when you're that close to the control line, when you should be hitting the loud pedal, he just didn't. And Freddie Hunt thought, well, I have to overtake him because we're going too slowly, and then thought, well, I'm not quite at the finish line yet, so I'm not legally allowed to overtake. Then you've got the Reiter Engineering car leaping on the brakes. Matchell can react, but the guy behind, Jérôme de Sadelier, just did not have the time or indeed the track space to know which way to go safely. He immediately lost the car, and because there's a concrete wall there, it's the pit wall, there's only ever going to be one winner there. So Torsten Kratz
didn't go. Can't pass until the
no, you
start-finish line.
You can't, and Freddie Hunt clearly could go faster, but you're right that in the sense that if Hunt had the speed in order to overtake, then why was Torsten Kratz not showing similar pace?
It's a wheel loose from
de Sadelier's car. That was the thing I was
concerned about. Cars off to the right-hand side as well. That's the reaction from one of the most experienced racers here. Yeah, Magnussen. You don't want to see that. You never want to see that.
Well, Leo Weiss very confused about perhaps what Freddie Hunt was doing.
Has been called to the stewards for causing an accident at the restart. Now, I can understand why that is the conclusion, because Hunt went.
Yes, and then stopped. And the problem is for the cars. I mean, oh, Nick Jones's Porsche is on the track.
Yeah,
I
but it's on the track, but not continuing.
And that's not because of the red flag. You should still be moving and heading back to...
Unless he's been involved in a further incident, because there are a number of cars that were off the track there.
The ripple effect, I don't think we've quite got to the bottom of yet, because there were an awful lot of cars, as you say, having to check up.
So the reason for the call, let's go back over that, Johnny. So Torsten Kratz checked up. He controls the field.
I don't think he checked up. I just don't think he
didn't get going.
Didn't get into a reasonable speed.
Freddie Hunt saw the opportunity, and then I think he actually did pass him, and then checked up.
There's another incident now involving Mark Crader and the 70 car.
I wonder if actually
73.
Nick Jones may well have been signalled to stop there for the red flag. That may well be what it is. This may not be another problem. Major effort now to clear the track of debris.
We've got one car number correct in the incident that was being looked at, but they've now got the other car number wrong. That should read 73.
Yeah.
And that's a no further action, which is the rather minor incident now when you compare it to what we've just witnessed between Mark Crader and Pietro Peccinini, which it looks like has put the TS Corsa car
I think they're
out of the race.
Yeah, that car's not emerged from the pits. So we'll bring you news as and when we receive it. So the track clear-up well underway, as you can see, with a lot of track officials there clearing the significant amounts of debris.
The other thing to point out is that the race clock is still ticking down at this point. It has not been stopped, which is normal. If at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, for instance, we had a red flag, the race time would still continue to go by. So that is, unlike a qualifying session where we do hit the pause button, that's about normal. It will mean that the driving times for each of the drivers in every car will have to be adjusted as well, in accordance with the amount of racing time we're actually going to get in. But with the marshals out on track and several officials from the Michelin Le Mans Cup and the ELMS out on the circuit as well to organise just where the cars are going to stop. All engines being shut off by the sounds of things, because this will be a lengthy stoppage, and the rescue crews, medical crews, still attending Jerome de Sadelier's car. But that was quite clearly the right way to go as far as a red flag is concerned. We do sometimes, with a start line incident, see cars being brought through the pit lane, but I think it's inevitable that really we would have been under a safety car for 15, 20 minutes. So far better to park the cars up on the start-finish line. The cars won't be able to be touched, even though it is a red flag. No real adjustment can be made. And we will presumably then go for a restart single file behind a safety car rather than grid the cars up again.
Let's watch this again, Johnny. That Hunt went way too early, way too early. So Torsten Kratz didn't check up. Hunt went way too early. Then you're completely correct. Realised can't pass before the line. Checked up. Unfortunately, because of course behind Hunt they can't see what's going on with Kratz. They've gone following the car behind him and straight to the scene of a disaster. So I have to say, looking at that for a third time, the call from race control is completely correct. By the way, that's the other MV2S car having a full 360 spin in avoidance and continuing.
I'm not sure whether it might have actually hit the wheel of the green and white MV2S car. Let's just have a look. The wheel breaks free there. And is it then collected by anybody? No, I think it's just about avoided, actually. It starts to bounce around and almost generate its own energy. Then there was the spin for the other MV2S racing
nothing.
car. I know, and great avoidance driving from possibly one of the Graf cars. I don't think there was much further contact, in actual fact, further back down the order. But when you are 5th, 6th, 7th in the safety car Crocodile, your only reference point as to when we're going for a restart is the car immediately in front. Therefore, Alexander Matchell is judging his pace to Freddie Hunt's. and
yes.
Jerome de Sadalier is looking at Matchell.
Hence the phrase,
so it's like,
the leader controls the pace to the line.
Yeah,
that's
but when
the
you're
point.
4th and 5th, you don't know what the leader's doing.
All you can see is the back of the car in front of you, and we can see there from the rear shot, Johnny, the car leading them, that's the 76 car, goes to the right. They've gone on the loud pedal at the same moment, or a microsecond afterwards. They don't know what's happened to the car that appears to their left at all. They're doing what they think is the right thing. And this is, by the way, this is the repeat of the start. That's John Brownson getting caught out by the fact that the field is backed up in front of him, so he was a little bit too eager there. So a whole lot going on here. Take us through, Johnny, the start of this race and a couple of incidents in the first couple of corners.
Yeah, I still can't quite work out where that massive puff of smoke came from. Possibly the 43 Racing Spirit of Le Mans car, the second of the cars in the race, because the 10 of Alexander Matchell much further up. Then in the smoke, this is all generated by Mark Crader's Optimum Motorsport car, which went sideways under braking. Graham made the point that several cars immediately in front of Mark were possibly slowing much earlier than he'd expected, so he absolutely slammed on the anchors, but unfortunately for him lost control of the car, and very much unfortunately for Pietro Peccinini, it left the TS Corsa 73 Duqueine with nowhere to go and slapped into the side of Mark Crader's left-hand side, effectively T-boned. And although Mark was able to continue in the race, big damage to the front of Pietro Peccinini's car. That was Alexander Matchell trying desperately to fend off Jerome de Sadalier through turn 4, and he did just about do it. But then, as mentioned, the car now going slowly, green and yellow car. Oh, it looks like there may be some rear suspension damage to the Peccinini car as well, because it was almost in a slide at very slow speed there. So clearly something's perhaps been done to the rear of the car, and Pietro did a very good job in getting it back again as safe as possible.
Working to try to work out why the Porsche was there. That will be because they just come out the pits. They, of course, then get to the line. They're almost another lap down to the field, so they were the first to encounter the red flag at the line. Hearing now for that the red flag here is going to last at least 20 minutes, Johnny.
Yeah. And there's not only concern, of course, for one of our drivers, but also for the circuit infrastructure. It wasn't concrete that Jerome hit, by the looks of things. It was the Armco barrier which has been pushed back. Now,
the second time in, what, 2 or 3 years we've had a major incident, that almost at that point, you remember?
Yeah, I do.
Andres Leskaratos being caught up. That's a big hit on that barrier.
Yes, and the Armco is designed to deform rather than stay solid like a concrete wall, so it's bent both layers of the Armco, the area facing the racetrack, and then there's a section of Armco behind that facing the pit lane side, and both have been pushed out of position, and of course that then compromises the structural rigidity of the Armco barrier, so it remains to be seen how much of that's going to be cut out and perhaps replaced. It's pretty tricky because it's not like Armco barrier elsewhere, and this is not a scene I like to see, which is the extent, unfortunately, of the damage of Jerome de Sadalier's car. Now, they wouldn't be lifting the car if Jerome was still in it.
No, Jerome's in the ambulance.
And he's got into the ambulance, so will be being taken to the medical centre now as a matter of course. Also overlooking everything going on here is Eduardo Freitas, who has been on so many occasions our race director. Is Portuguese, so it would make sense for him to be here at his home event, and is helping out race control in all sorts of ways. So we're going to get more information about a restart to this race in just over 5 minutes time at 9:30. We're at 9:24 at this time, but Jerome de Sadalier and what is left of his MV2S Forestier racing car is now being lifted.
Watch the 76. 76 has passed the leader there, then checks up, and that's what caused the initial incident.
I'm not sure whether that's better or worse that Jerome hit the Armco barrier. At least it will have given a little bit. Yeah, I know, but it's still going to, he's still going to be very, very sore from it. And it's a huge shock as well because, you are accelerating to take a restart of a race, and ideally look up the inside of Alexander Matchell down at turn 1. The last thing you expect is then Matchell getting out of the throttle, and you think, I've got to dramatically shave some speed off here.
There were some phenomenal avoidances in there.
Yeah.
I mean, let's say well done to everybody to avoid hitting the crashed car, because to be blunt, there are about 25 cars that could have done that.
Well, thankfully, you know, they're all starting single file, so they're a lot further back. Alexander Bukantsov, how did he get through in the number 14 Duquesne? Then there was the spin for the second MV2S racing car of Christophe Kress.
How he was missed.
Very little that he could have done about that. Yeah. But then, yes, you've then got a car sideways on one part of the track and the teammate car looping round and round and round. And amazingly, everybody then was able to avoid any secondary collisions. That's possibly quick work from team managers, getting straight on the radio, going crash, crash on the main straight, get out of the throttle as quickly as possible, almost like a NASCAR spotter.
So we're hearing on timing scoring, it says more information at 9:30. That is going to be about whether or not that barrier needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to offer an opinion because I'm not an expert, but what I can tell you is a work crew has just arrived.
The difficulty is it's not like replacing Armco at, say, the Nürburgring Nordschleife, which is Armco in front of posts, and sometimes the posts have to be pulled out of the ground as well. That's like freestanding Armco, and it's double backed. So you've got Armco that protects the racetrack, Armco that protects the pit lane.
Replacing the Armco is not an issue. It's the supports for the Armco that may be the issue.
Yeah. And, you know, how easy is it to take those broken panels out and find the correct bits of the jigsaw to offer up then as well. So the teams have been allowed to head out onto the main straight now to at least talk to their drivers and assess the situation. Clock is still ticking down, so we're just under an hour and 25 minutes to go now. Freddie Hunt thinking about the events that have just unfolded, I'm sure.
No one comes to a motor race with the intention of making an error.
No.
And it was nothing more than an error, I think is what I'd say there.
But these are split-second decisions that I'm sure, you know, he spotted an opportunity to overlap the car in front. But the other issue here at Portimão is that you're coming out of a very fast final corner and you're much lower down. You're in a dip, the track then rises to a level plateau, and in order to reference where the control line is, you just need to sort of bank that in the memory, and it's very difficult to kind of just become a little bit disorientated, particularly when you're behind another car, to think, I'm sure the control line is about here.
Yeah, I agree.
And it wasn't. But also, you're half expecting the car to pick up the pace. That is your responsibility to copy the pace of the car in front, though, i.e. the leader, Thorsten Kratz.
And that's the point here. Putting aside Thorsten Kratz, and I do believe he behaved completely correctly, by the way, the cue for the people behind him starting in single file is the behaviour of the car in front.
Yep.
And that for the cars behind was ready.
Yep. Yep, so, you have to judge your restart pace on the car in front. That is the only reference point. The sorry state of a wheel, together with all of the suspension components that have been absolutely plucked from the Jérôme de Saint-Delisle car.
Okay, the first official news on Jérôme de Saint-Delisle is that he is conscious and he is going to the medical centre. That's not in any way a surprise. We will bring you anything else on that as the very moment we get it, okay?
Yeah. Yeah, and the medical crews, even though he's conscious, will not be thinking everything is fine because they will be doing a full check. And that's always okay. Even if you just have a mild nose into a tyre wall, you'll always be taken to the medical centre for routine checks. But great that, you know, this Portimão Algarve International Circuit has the facility on site for everything to be done within moments of the incident taking place.
Clear up still going on, as you can see on the right-hand side. That will be some fluids, I'm sure, that's emerged. The front end of those Ligiers have a variety of reservoirs for the essential oils that are required. Can see there is some damage to the Armco support there.
So leaf blower in action to try and loosen as much of the debris which has ended up on the racetrack. These are the very, very small shards of carbon fibre, and also perhaps suspension bits from the front of the MV2S racing car. That looked a really quick car on single lap speed, so a real shame that we're going to be denied any further action from that as well, as still the assessment continues. I do think the track staff now, though, have a target in mind as
That's
to
the point.
what they're doing.
They now know what they're trying to achieve and how to achieve it. So you should start to see some pretty rapid progress. We will get, I'm sure, a bulletin from race control pretty quickly. As always with these things, you need to understand the whole picture. Job one is the people involved directly in the incident. Job two is clear that track and deal with the damage that's been caused, and that's where we are right now.
Interesting look into, I think, Alexander Matschall's cockpit there to give you an idea of how much information is being reported to him via the steering wheel. There's also various adjustments that he can make to the car in terms of its setup on the fly via that very smart steering wheel.
Well, while we're under a red flag, should we do what we often do in these circumstances, Johnny? We'll ask if you're watching and you'd like to drop us a question in. We usually do this via Twitter. So let's do it via Twitter. It's at Blackpool Johnny. That's at Blackpool, the Northern English seaside resort and terrible football team. Johnny, J-O-N-N-Y.
Thanks for that again.
Yeah, at DSC Editor for myself. At Le Mans Cup for the Michelin Le Mans Cup. And if you pop something in with hashtag ask MLMC and Johnny and I, and anybody else we can bring to the fray, we'll do what we can. There's Sean Lynn in his United Autosports car. I can tell you that astonishing helmet design, they are all cars that Sean owns.
Oh, really? So that's almost like a patchwork quilt around the helmet.
Trust me, it's an astonishing collection. It includes, for instance, the car that Sean drove at the Goodwood Festival of Speed, which is Porsche 956-001.
Lovely. Yeah, very good.
Bentley's, Audi R8, yeah, a lot. I'm not remotely jealous, Sean. Not remotely jealous.
Well, you could get a model of the helmet and, you know, just wonder at the spectacle. Wonder at the spectacle of owning
what a
one
racing
of those
family.
cars.
You've got Sean there with his son Max driving that Michelin Le Mans Cup Ligier, and of course one of his other sons, Alex, who is an international race driver, of course, Le Mans winner for Aston Martin in GTE Pro.
So what they're trying to do here is expose the posts that sit between the two Armco barriers in an effort to replace those. Another update coming at 9:40. In the meantime, let's head to Hayley Edmonds again.
I'm down here in the MV2S garage with Forestier Racing Garage with the team manager Fabien Lavergne, who has some news for us. Firstly, do you have some news on Jerome? How is he doing?
He's conscious, but he has big pain in the back. So I think he was lifted to the hospital, and we will have some news soon. But he has pain in the back.
Okay, and we've done our best job, of course, of kind of to decipher what happened out there. But can you tell us how you saw the incident?
Yeah, for me, it's quite clear. When you are the leader, you cannot brake just before the line like this. This is unacceptable for me behavior, and you know, it's just a criminal. For me, you just can't do that. So yeah, driving standards are quite poor, I must say, and I was not expecting that from this guy, but yeah, he did.
So you think that Jerome didn't have the choice in the matter?
No, for sure, because Freddie had to brake, and you know they are coming like 250k, so no way he could avoid that. So yeah, the thing is that the leader brake on the line, so it's just impossible to do that.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Fabien.
When Fabien says leader, I do think he means Freddie Hunt, as in the car ahead of Jerome de Saint-Delia, because he actually mentioned Freddie by name as well. The leader at the time was Torsten Kratz. Yeah, I'd love to see some telemetry from the WTM racing car. Visually, to me, it appeared that Torsten didn't alter his speed at all.
I'll say this. we've not got the full information. Race control and the race stewards will have full information. They've got very advanced systems to look at this. I don't call these things. I think it's down to a decision there with all the information. We can see again, Freddie is past Torsten Kratz at that point.
Technically, he's the leader by that point.
Yeah, he's passed him by that point. He then checks up. And that moment is what then caused the knock-on effect. The rights and wrongs of what happened to that point, and as you might well imagine, I'm getting all sorts of messages from all sorts of people about what might have happened a little earlier than that point. I'm not going to call. Does Torsten Kratz maintain his pace there? He doesn't appear to, actually.
Having seen it from further back this time, no, I agree. But again, we have not got access to the data that I'm sure Race Control do have via the teams. It was peculiar to me, and I said this at the time, why Kratz didn't fully pick up the speed.
Yeah.
The instruction from Race Control in the driver's briefing at the start of the meeting is that after a safety car and on a restart after a safety car, if you're the leader, you dictate the pace when the safety car pulls in, but it must be consistent.
Yeah.
And you choose when to go, but you can't go and then stop.
At the end of the day, there's 2 points at issue here. The most important one is Girona Sadler. And as we heard there, airlifted to hospital.
Yeah.
Has some pain in his back. That's not remotely a surprise when you look at the forces of deceleration that were involved there. And the second issue is an attribution and an explanation as to what happened to cause the incident in the first place. Race Control at the moment will be one of the busiest places on the planet. One, coordinating repairs to get this race meeting back underway, and two, to look into that incident to determine what is going to come out as a result from that. This is going to be some little time still before we get any kind of information about restart. As you can see, there is a concerted effort to disassemble that Armco structure, and as you can see, there is deformation to the supports behind it. So we will keep you briefed as best we possibly can.
We've had nearly 22 minutes of this red flag by my reckoning, so we were 15.5 minutes into the race, just trying to think about how much of the race needs to be run in order for it to deliver maximum points. Thankfully, this won't affect how LMP3 unfolds, because we already have champions there, and there isn't an invitation to next year's 24 Hours of Le Mans riding upon that. It is, though, there is an invitation riding upon who wins the GT3 category, and we know that's either one of the three GMB Motorsport Honda NSXs. 55 currently leading, but it might not be the full 25 points the way we're going, because if we can only get to half distance, then I think it would be half points delivered.
Yeah.
If we can't make the 50% ruling.
Do have a couple of questions coming in on Twitter. Remember, if you pop a message to Johnny and I, at Blackpool Johnny, at DSC Editor, at Le Mans Cup, and hashtag AskMLMC, Michelin Le Mans Cup. First one comes from Sarah Rigby, simple one from Sarah, which is who did actually start the Bullet racing car. Stephen Patrick, by the look of things, started that car, Sarah, and all is safe and well with that car. Another one from Daniel Summerskill. Hi, Daniel. Do we think there'll be a more balanced field next year in terms of the numbers of GT3s than LMP3s, given GT3 is coming to the FIWC and European Le Mans Series in 2024? I can tell you this much. In the course of my everyday duties, as someone who covers this sport every day, of course I get messages, emails, WhatsApp, telephone calls from teams asking about the pros and cons of various races and packages. It's been quite a while since I've heard as many teams that operate GT cars as they do referencing Le Mans Cup. Active conversations with 2 or 3 teams. They're looking to bring 1 or 2 GT3 cars. Whether that emerges is a different matter, but I think there's every chance there might well be a pretty substantial boost to the GT3 field in 2023, because you're absolutely right. Of course, GT3 cars are coming to the European Le Mans Series and the FI World Endurance Championship the following year. One more year to go for the fabulous GTE class both in the LMS and the WEC, and that will be only in the Pro-Am category. So, yeah, big changes to come, huge changes to come. And still lots and lots of messages coming in, lots of theories. More information from race control presently, but I think it's pretty obvious what the delay is now going to be. It's that repair to the barrier, but it's about an estimation of it. And just to confirm what you said a little earlier, Johnny, the clock is still running here, and we're now at 70 minutes of the hour and 50 minutes, the 110 minutes. So we've lost well over half an hour to this. And that's more information about restarts, pushed back another 10 minutes. That is not a 10-minute job.
Well, no. They are slowly working their way into the middle of that Armco barrier, removing the slats of the Armco. It's sectional pieces, as Armco tends to be, so you can slowly reveal the layers, and then, crucially, the buckled posts in the middle. But it's a big old job, because normally if Armco is standing at the side of a track, it's really only one layer that you need to replace, and that's quite a quick job.
Just before, by the way, the incident, I was about to actually fill you in on a little bit of history with Jan Magnussen. He talked about racing in touring cars against some of these guys, and he's absolutely right. He's two-time Danish touring car champion. Before it went to the Scandinavian Touring Car Championship, and Casper Elgaard, multiple, who's the team manager at GMB Motorsport, multiple champion. Karting track just up the hill here, the Algarve Race Resort, as it's often known, but quite some facility here at Portimão. And the Karting World Championship hosted here every year, I think. I remember bumping into a couple of well-known dads and their sons. Lorenzo Patrese and his father here a couple of years ago. Roberto Lacorte and his son from Chetelaar Racing.
That's one of the best places that you can watch from here at Portimão. Top step of the top layer of the rotunda, which sits on the inside of turn 5. Sometimes, if the right personnel are there when you visit, they might even let you onto the roof as well. But you have to have the right passes for that. But it does provide a superb area of the circuit to see a lot of corners all at the same time. But this a moment of reflection clearly for those right at the front who witnessed the incident, and of course for those in the midfield that had to very much take avoiding action. There will be a bulletin eventually issued regarding new driving times, and that is strategy that will have to be worked on the fly by a lot of the teams that, yes, are experienced, maybe courtesy of doing ELMS as well, but teams that are newish to endurance racing will have to think about that and feed it into the spreadsheet very quickly indeed at the restart.
See the body language of one or two of the drivers are now out of the cars in very many cases, because it is clearly going to be a further delay here. And it does strike me, Johnny, it's that kind of patting yourself down when you've been in a gunfight, so you've been hit. That there will be many of those drivers that will simply not be able to believe that they weren't caught up in it. Not least, of course, the second of the MV2S cars that had that full 360-degree spin and continued in the middle of that melee.
Yeah.
That was Christoph Cresp, wasn't it?
Yes, Cresp in the orange and white MV2S car, which came very close to collecting the team machine that was already very badly damaged by that point. But it is amazing then and we have watched the replay of the ripple effect further down the order several times now, and don't think there was any further contact for those cars looking for a way by. Just seen a tweet regarding this car, the H24 machine, from Gold Old Benji, and thank you to you for that. Is the H24 car competitive in MLMC? Well, it depends what you're comparing it to.
Well,
really.
The answer is there is nothing to compare it to. So to tell you what the first and foremost, it's a hydrogen fuel cell, hydrogen electric drive car. So there is no traditional engine in that car. The only emission from this car is water. Theory, you can drink it. It's as simple as that. Is it competitive? It's aiming for GT3 levels of speed. And it's basically hitting head on the multiple technological challenges that come with that. The principal one is weight. This is new technology in racing. Weight is a major issue, so it's a heavy car. It's built, by the way, around an LMP3 chassis, an ADES LMP3 chassis. And ADES and Stefan Chaussee and his team are here once again to look after this car. So weight is the major issue. Cooling is another major issue because of the way in which the technology works, and that's why you've got the massive cooling arrays around the power plants when you see the car with the bodywork off. I've never seen any kind of vehicle with as much proportion of radiator to surface as this car has got, and the air intakes for the car. Beyond that, you've also got the fact that they're trying to build more range into the car.
Yeah.
So it will not be able to do a full stint as a GT3 car would do, or as an LMP3 car would do. And the third thing is the filling time. There is for me, one of the most groundbreaking pieces of tech we've got in that H24 program is the road transportable filling station. It is literally a containerized filling station. That says Tony Wells. He's probably requested a comfort break. We'll have to go under supervision to do that. I'm only kidding. But Tony, the reigning champion, of course, with Colin Noble. And that title, as we said a little earlier, is gone. But it is the H24 efforts, an extraordinary programme. Been with us now for several years. Raced for the first time, Johnny, at Imola. Had a crack at the Road to Le Mans, set the speed record at Le Mans for a hydrogen-powered vehicle. So in other words, there you go. That's the baseline for what we know should be coming in future years. The COVID pandemic has delayed what was supposed to be a 2025 set of regulations for cars from major manufacturers to get to potential race winning performance with this technology. But the ACO, Total Energies, Michelin, Green GT, and all the people behind that program very much at the forefront of trying to push this technology forward. So it's an interesting project. It's at times, Johnny, you know, when you take a couple of steps away from what's been happening in sports car racing over the last decade, it's difficult sometimes to remember how significant some of that is. We've got a couple of visitors in the press room this weekend, a couple of the content creators that would more regularly cover F1 and F2, and I spent some time with them. And I hope you're listening, ladies, and I hope you're enjoying the weekend. And just with someone outside our own bubble to recall what is actually happening in sports car racing right here, right now, you know, including the renewable fuel that we're using, you know, which comes from, and I apologise if I'm using the wrong terminology, but the renewable fuel from waste products from winemaking. Before that, though, let's pop down to Hayley, who's in pit lane, to chat to someone involved in this current situation.
So I'm down here by the pit wall, actually, and I'm with Louis Rousset, who, of course, is Jerome Sandelier's teammate. I know it's obviously quite hard for you, very hard for you to watch that incident, and of course, you know, to be getting constant news from his state and stuff and such like. But how did you interpret the incident?
For me, it's a shame at this level that a driver brake on the straight line. So this killed all of our year. It's fucked up because of this. But so I hope first of all that Jerome is okay, and we'll see after for the investigation.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm sorry for you're swearing then. But okay, so you just interpreted it as just that the fact that Torsten broke and that was the issue.
It's a shame. I don't want to say more words about this, but shame.
All right, thank you.
That's Louis Rousset, who understandably is very concerned about Jerome de Sadelier, who has been flown to a local hospital here at Portimão after an incident that you just did not have any time to work out what was going on as it all unfolded. The Audi Sport Customer Racing overalls of Antonio Forney as he clambers out of his car. So clearly does a fair bit of Audi R8 racing away from
GT4.
This. GT4, okay,
yeah,
nice.
I think so.
Yeah. So Tony Forney is stepping out for a bit of fresh air, if you like, and just a walk around. Don't really want to be installed in the cars for any longer than is necessary. It is a tight office space in these machines. He driving the number 33 Team Virage car, running currently in 13th position. Well, they're all parked up on the main straight for the time being as the work continues to the Armco barrier. So if you're just joining us, what are we, 10 to 10 local time, 10 to 11 in Europe, and maybe you've seen on the live stream feed that there's a race going on, or should be at least. Unfortunately, we've now been under this red flag for half an hour, 35 minutes, in fact, after at about 9:15 this morning, coming out of a safety car, which was caused by a car off at turn 11, Jonathan Brossard's ANS Motorsport car. A rather innocuous off, to be honest. That was recovered from the gravel trap. We were about to go racing again, and then massive confusion at the front of the field. Torsten Kratz was involved, Freddie Hunt was involved, and then massively so, Jerome de Sadelier.
Well, Alexander Matschel as well, and then Jerome de Sadelier,
really involved,
you know,
yes.
with the kind of the trigger, if you like, was what happened to the cars ahead, and Jerome de Sadelier was just left in a position.
Of all the four,
yeah.
I think Matschel's in the clear.
So
we can almost remove him.
Right now, I mean, very simple. I'm not going to play the game of apportioning blame for that. It's not my role, not my job. There are people far better versed with far better systems available to them. We can call it as we see it, but Jerome de Sadelier most certainly was the victim of whatever transpired, whether error transpired, whatever happened in front of him. There's no doubt in my mind that Jerome de Sadelier behaved as properly as he possibly could in the circumstances, was caught out by the circumstances ahead.
Yeah.
We will get to hear what race control and what the stewards have determined there. The disassembly of that tyre barrier has been completed. The Armco has been completed. You can see there the deformation, and that is circuit officials who will know this is their infrastructure. Remember, they're the best people to determine what the solution is here, but it's pretty clear that's going to take some little time. Be more information about the restart now at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
So that's going to take us deep into the final hour of this race.
Yeah, well, we're already in the final hour, in fact, with that first digit having been removed. We're at 57 minutes and 45 seconds to be exact. I think the lowest slat on the Armco barrier is still to be removed, and it's so badly buckled that they're just trying to expose the nuts there that need to be loosened, and then the stanchion itself in the middle of the two Armco pieces needs to be removed as well. I'm not sure how easily that is going to be done in truth, but there is Hayley Edmonds, our pit lane reporter, having a chat with Torsten Kratz, who still sits at the wheel. But with now 35 minutes, nearly 40 minutes of this race under red flag, that will be, well, half distance of a 1 hour and 50 minute race is obviously 55 minutes. So as soon as we get to the 55 minute marker, we will have had half of the race held under red flags. And then there's a decision to be made, really, as to how much more we attempt to run, because bear in mind, half of the race has to be done by the second driver as well. So yeah. When we get to 55 minutes, we're nearly at 40. That's a hinge point on a decision that will need to be made in race control. Is it worth restarting the race at all? Do we then treat it as effectively two 25-minute stints to get us to the finish? But it would then only be half points awarded as the final race of the season. There's Freddie Hunt having a chat, I'm sure, with some of the team members at Reiter Engineering.
Correct. Yeah, it's Freddie there with a bottle of water. A lot of emotion involved here, and difficult for absolutely everybody involved are trying to unpick such a rapidly moving situation.
And the information that Freddie's giving to his team will be portrayed to race control as well when they are called to the office upstairs. And what will race control will be doing will be getting a two-way conversation with each of the teams involved to get their assessment, plus all of the visual footage that can be accumulated from additional cameras than we have here in TV. There might be some onboard footage as well.
Absolutely.
And some data, some telemetry from the cars. It will all be worked out. But unfortunately, the bottom line is we still have a driver hospitalised, effectively.
Completely correct.
And that's the nature of motorsport. We all know it's dangerous, but these incidents are no easier to go through, to witness, to see cars badly damaged and drivers injured. But in some degrees, that is the nature of the beast. It says on the ticket as you come in, motorsport is dangerous.
It does, and so we're now dealing with 3 parallel processes. One is Jerome, and all of my concerns, and I'm sure everybody else's concerns, are with him. The second thing is, of course, the incident needs to be unpicked, and the third thing is the circuit infrastructure needs to be repaired before we can get this or any other racing underway today. And I'm sure jangling nerves all around here. The one other point that does occur here, Johnny, is what change this might make to the mathematics if we're into a half-point situation.
Yeah, I mean, it probably takes the 88 car out of the equation.
I think it possibly means that the 55 has won.
Okay, let's have a little look at how the championship points... Well, did we say it was an 18-point gap yesterday with the pole position?
Points, they've won.
Yeah. And certainly not in the way that they would have wanted, but that's the great thing about having had a championship lead from the previous 5 races and to be leading technically on the road right now as well. So the gap, to remind you, was coming into the event 17 points. It extended to 18 points yesterday with the pole position, a second pole of the year for Christian Poulsen in the 55 car. So 94 place 76, but for a race win, you would now only get 12.5 points rather than the 25 as previously advertised.
The second we get confirmation that it's half points, that is the championship to G&B Motorsport 55 group.
Yeah, 55 car. And another look at the watch tells us that it's nearly now 45 minutes under red flag as the Armco barrier is, I think, still being taken apart, actually. So there's new slats being offered up. I'm sure they will have been delivered by the truck in the last few moments. So the rest of the crew there are with that lorry with the HIAB on the back in the far end of the shot. Now, is that all new Armco that's gone in? Eduardo Freitas is examining the hard work that has been done. And no, there's still quite a large panel which is absent from the wall. So still the clock ticks by. Here are the new panels on the back of the truck then, the straight Armco barriers. And Eduardo Freitas in deep conversation now, and all of this will be going back to Fires Ramsey Fires as well. It's actually quite a good job that Eduardo was here this weekend, because it means that the race director can stay in position and Eduardo can oversee things down at ground level. Torsten Kratz with the glasses on, raring to go if indeed we do get a restart in that race-leading WTM racing machine, car number 11. Helmets and hands devices, I think, are going back on for a lot of the drivers, though. So Is that maybe some information that the teams are getting that there will be a restart? We have been told that the next bit of information that hopefully we'll get will be in a minute's time, although that continually gets pushed back 10 minutes every time we reach the new time. And this is clearly a very fluid situation, very much dependent on the hard work being done at pit entry there. So round 6 of the Michelin Le Mans Cup, under a red flag now for exactly 45 minutes. And in another 10 minutes time, so let's say we get another message on the bottom of our screen in a moment to say more information at 10 past 10. I think by 10 past 10, we will be at a point where only 50% of the points can be awarded, because that will be half distance in the race under red flag.
Yeah, and it looks to me as if there's at least another 10 minutes worth of work.
And there's confirmation of it.
10-10. So we are going to be in a half-point situation, aren't we?
Yeah.
All sorts of people trying to unpick. There's Jonathan Brossard, and what's he going to be feeling about this? Not his fault at all. Involved in a separate incident that's almost forgotten in the wake of this. That's what brought out the safety car. Did spot, by the way, both Eduardo Freitas and Randy Fires, the race director, at the scene of this repair. So overseeing and just assessing, I'm sure, what repair is needed, and indeed how long they believe it might take to go back and inform race control. Crichton Lentudis and Alexander Talkanitsa, senior.
Are those guys still effectively teammates? Because the AF Corsa car of
AF
Lentudis,
yes, yeah.
and AT Racing is run by AF Corsa,
correct,
isn't it?
and
yeah.
of course it's a 51 car under that awning as well. So 3 cars in this race run by AF Corsa. Why has Crichton Lentudis got Peugeot on the shade band on his visor? It's because he owns one of the LMP1 Peugeots and races that in historic racing. Fabulous car, run out of BBM Sport in the UK. Bob Berridge, a previous ELMS champion, of course, in LMP2 back in the day in BBM. Berridge, Briggs and Manassian. Yes, that Manassian.
Marcel Tenkat, thank you for this message regarding the situation. He says, just be aware of the rule that says if the race is suspended and cannot resume, that's a rule for half points as well. Yes, quite possibly so. So we would take the positions after 6 laps, effectively, maybe even after 5 laps if there was a count back, and those positions would glean half points. I think it's very unlikely now that we're going to be able to restart in time for 55 minutes of racing in total. We've had 15 minutes of that. A further 40 minutes would be required, therefore, and a bit more to go north of half distance, but that seems very unlikely now. Still a splendid job being done by the crews based here at Portimão. Crane now being used to lower new panels to the ground, I think, and to suitably attach those then bolted in.
Freddie Hunt to the left there, Tony Wells to the right. I'm sure they'll be doing their own analysis of what's been occurring.
Yeah.
Does look remarkably like his late father, doesn't he?
So Tony, I'm trying to work out where Tony was. Well, he came across the line
third.
But
that's because
that's after the red flag, wasn't
it?
Yeah.
That will have to be counted back.
Yeah. So they are not correct positions.
No, they're not
on the timing and scoring right now. Torsten Kratz leading, Freddie Hunt second, and Tony Wells came back across the line at the end of the red flag lap in third. But it was actually Alexander Matchell as they crossed the line. But it's difficult because I presume then, therefore, you'd go back to the order behind the first safety car of the 2, the one that was caused by the ANS car going off the road. And therefore, really, if we don't get any more racing, we would have had, was it 1 racing lap? Possibly 2? Trying to think when Brossard went off the road. Lap 2, I think it was.
2, I think, yes.
Yeah. So we would have had 1 clear lap where Torsten Kratz was still leading from Freddie Hunt.
they completed that lap without the safety car being called. With quite a way round on the next lap, I think, for race control to assess whether or not he could actually get out.
Yes. Yeah, because often if a car falls off, it can actually recover itself, but it's just too tricky there because it's a downhill gravel trap where Jonathan Brossard had his moment. Very, very difficult indeed. We still haven't got to the bottom of whether there was another car involved in that collision.
So I think that's lost in the dust of what's occurred since. So, yeah. So if you are joining us and wondering why you are seeing drivers leaning against the pit wall and not storming around the Algarve International Circuit, that comes after a major incident and at the end of lap 6 involving the leading group of cars coming out of a safety car period and whatever else we can call it, some confusion at the restart that led to the car that was 4th in the order, the car of Jerome de Sadelier, making heavy impact with the Armco barriers that separate racing surface from the pit lane. And Jerome miraculously missed by the rest of the pack as they came storming through. The incident, the recovery for Jerome, the repair that's required to the barrier, and the, aircraft crash-like debris field required a red flag. Jerome, we can tell you, has been taken to the Circuit Medical Centre where he's been assessed and now airlifted to the local hospital. We heard from the MV2S by Forestier Racing team manager that Jerome was complaining of some back pain. No risks will be taken. They'll take him to the very best place they possibly can. That is the situation as we have it with Jerome de Sadelier. As far as the circuit infrastructure, if you look at this picture in the foreground on the right with the truck with the red boom, that is involved in a replacement and repair of the structure that supports the Armco barrier and replacement of the Armco barrier, which was pretty badly damaged, Johnny. While we're waiting for that, the cars are under red flag and under part ferme conditions on the start-finish straight, with the clock ticking down now to the point where half points are now a reality.
They are, because we would have to start in the next 3.5 minutes to ensure that a little more than half distance is completed. It was due to be a 1 hour and 50-minute race. Half of that, therefore, is 55 minutes, and we're at 52 minutes held under red flag. The red flag, as far as I can see, issued and instructed to be waived by 9:15 and 37 seconds. So we are nearing now the next update for information, which is 10 past 10 local, just 3 minutes away. Some interesting comments regarding title wins in debut seasons. Have any drivers in the Michelin Le Mans Cup ever won their respective classes in their rookie year before? I would say several have. 2016 was the first year of this particular championship when it was GT3 only.
And Ewan Hankey.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, lest we forget, launched TF Sports from being effectively a team that operated nationally in the UK to the team we now know as the multinational powerhouse that they have become. Including, by the way, pole position for the LMS later today.
The following year, Ebby Motors showed up with a guy called Emanuele Busnelli, who's been racing in the championship this year as well, along with Fabio Babini.
Not his rookie year.
Certainly not, no. Well, OK, are we not talking about rookie year in this championship alone? We're talking about rookie seasons in motorsport, full stop,
whatever we like it to be. We've got some time.
True. Well, Jean Gloria...
Oh, well, yeah, well, Jean Gloria had been around for quite some time.
Yeah.
But certainly that was his rookie year in LMP3.
Yes. Had done Porsche Carrera Cup prior to that. It was his rookie year in ACO rules racing, in fact, and became the champion with 4 wins and 5 podiums. So that was fairly momentous for Jean. Raced in those days with Alexander Torrell, Spaniard. Then the next year, which was 2018, it was a win in GT3 for Kessel Racing, which took them to Le Mans in 2019.
And took them to Le Mans, by the way, for the first time. A well-established team. They had been there previously and had won, in fact, with Scuderia Corsa, but not under their own name. And that's one of the, you know, the big Ferrari teams. They used that as a lever into GTE for the very first time. It's a remarkable thing, Johnny, that the plan, as we see Eduardo Freitas, the plan that sees the GT3 Championship winner getting access to the Le Mans 24 Hours into the GTE paddock has been remarkably successful. If you look at the teams who've won in GT3, the vast majority of them have stuck around for many years and have had real success in GT Beyond. EB Motors did. They ran the Porsche 911 RSR for a couple of seasons. Certainly, we have, as we say, with TF Sports, you know, we'll get on to Iron Lynx a little later and look what happened there. It's been a remarkable feeder series for that, despite the fact that at times the numbers of GT3 cars in the series have not been at a very high level.
So Kessel winning with Giacomo Piccini and Sergio Pianazzola. And Pianazzola had come from rallying, actually, so certainly it wasn't his debut season in motorsport, but again, first foray into ACO rules racing. And then he did the 2018/19 FIA World Endurance Championship as well. That would have been the round at Le Mans that he competed in. LMP3 was another win for DKR Engineering, the ever-dominant, really, Luxembourgish crew, with Jens Pettersson and Leonard Hugenboom, which was a great name at the time. Jens Pettersson.
What's Leonard up to now?
These days, well, champion in 2018 in this particular championship.
Based in Asia Le Mans Series in LMP2.
And was a champion for G-Drive Racing by Algarve in the 1920 season. But yes, Leonard, in terms of top-level motorsport, does seem to have disappeared from the scene.
I wonder if that was a driver grading related thing. Once you go to gold, if there's not a lot of budget, you know,
quite possibly so.
It could well be that is one of the, I'm afraid, the modern issues.
Francois Kehrman won the following year with Laurence Hour, who is still with DKR Engineering. Now that, I reckon, was a debut championship for Francois Kehrman, who hasn't been doing any top-level racing in 2022, the 34-year-old from Strasbourg, but was a champion in the Le Mans Cup with Hour in 2019. There was also another title win for Kessel Racing in GT3 that year, which continually enabled them to compete at Le Mans the following season. Rino Mastronardi, Giacomo Piccini were victors in GT3 in 2020. Rino had been racing for a good few years, in fact, doing Formula Renault back in the mid-90s.
Giacomo, by the way, currently very senior management in the Prema Iron Lynx side, together with his brother, and has been responsible for a lot of the success outside the driving seat since then.
And then our most recent winners in the Michelin Le Mans Cup last year, winning GT3 was Iron Lynx from the teams, and how that worked out, but they had changing drivers through the year.
Remember, you don't win as a driver, you win as a team in GT3.
Yeah, and there was a driver's champion, which was Nicky Leutwiler on his own, because again, he changed his co-driver from time to time. So Leutwiler, although new to ACO rules racing, was certainly not new to motor racing.
No, I remember Nicky, I think in LMP2 in Asian Le Mans Series in the years gone by, in the race performance Orica, the 03 car with the Judd engine.
He also competed in the 2005 Le Mans Series as well in the GT2 days, so that by no means was a debut season. And after years of trying to win it, Tony Wells and Colin Noble won LMP3 last year.
And they certainly were not debutants.
Indeed not. I think, well, perhaps taking out the mix 2016 and maybe 17, they've been ever present since then. So, yeah, as I say, long-time triers and eventually getting to the top last year. So it's been a really nice mix of different cars within GT3 taking victories. Yes, you could say DKR Engineering have been somewhat dominant, but that changed last year for Tony Wells and Colin Noble. They did, in fact, compete in the 2017 season, and it was a championship win by only 4 points for Nielsen Racing from Cool Racing, who are still well, big players now in the European Le Mans series.
Something of a plan may well be in train because we've got no timing screen, so I suggest that some things can be adjusted before being reposted here. So whatever's going on, they're working on it. If you are still with us, thank you for staying with us this morning. It's going to be, we hope, a much happier continuation for racing here at Portimão. Whatever's going to happen with the Michelin Le Mans Cup race, but remember, we've also got later this afternoon the season finale with the European Le Mans Series, the 4 Hours of Portimão. And if that race, Johnny, has any level of the drama that we saw in qualifying, it's going to be an absolute barnstormer. Progress is being made here reasonably rapidly, but you will appreciate they want to be absolutely certain of the viability of that structure.
Yeah, and when you've got back-to-back Armco, then there's always the danger of the contact from one side affecting majorly the other, and both layers of Armco push back dramatically. A look into the cockpit of the H24 car. Stefan Rakelmi standing alongside the machine, ready to take charge of it again if necessary. But there you can see again the huge air intakes, almost like safari rally style, to gulp air in to offer cooling, and there's a lot of radiators underneath that engine cover, also so many batteries as well. And yeah, Stefan Rakelmi, other than waiting, has no other option really.
Stefan, very experienced racer, by the way, in LMP cars. He's a great man to have involved in the development of this car. I think I was saying yesterday in qualifying success in LMP2. He's been aboard LMP1 cars, and certainly in the development of the Ginetta LMP1 car. He's one of the drivers that came close to a race seat in those cars for the FI World Endurance Championship. Good to see him back here. Also involved in that car, its development. In fact, his name is on the side of the car, Norman Nato. So, timing screen is back, Johnny.
Okay, so there may have been some adjustment, although Tony Wells is still there in third position, which will have to be corrected. We are now an hour of the red flag, just beyond it. In fact, it came out at 9:15. It's now 10:17, and only 33 minutes of the race time to go.
So again, just in case you are joining us late or you've missed what's been going on, we are under red flag, have been now for over an hour, for repairs to the barriers at pit in after a major accident involving Jerome de Sadelier. Jerome has been airlifted to hospital after complaining of back pain, and that all happened on a restart after a red flag, sorry, after a safety car was called for an incident that saw Jonathan Brossard in the ANS Motorsport number 6 car off the road into the gravel. That's a safety car required whilst the car was recovered. As we went back to green, there was some confusion amongst the lead group, we'll say that much, that saw Jerome de Sadelier, I think a completely innocent victim of that confusion, caught out under full power as the cars in front of him, in his immediate in front of him, checked up hard, lost control of the car, hit the barrier to the right-hand side, the Armco barrier that separates the track from the entry to pit lane, hit that hard. Major damage to the car, major damage to the barrier, big debris field, red flag. That's where we are. The major delay at the moment is for the repair of that barrier. That's what you're seeing to the right-hand side of the screen at the moment. And that it principally involves the supports for the Armco barrier, which were certainly pushed back. The Armco itself did its job, but was heavily damaged, and that's obviously having to be replaced as well. 99 Bullet Racing Aston Martin, Stephen Patrick starting that car. Stephen at the door of the car. Lives in Gibraltar, I believe. Team is managed by his son. And fabulous looking thing, this Bullet Racing liveried car. They've had their ups and downs. We're in the championship fight until a problem going to the grid, wasn't it, at Spa?
Yes.
Stephen Patrick off the road, suspension damage, counting that car out of a race that could have kept the championship alive, but that set up an astonishing 1-2-3 for G&B Motorsport, which meant that they came here with all three cars still in the championship hunt, although that might have been, remarkably, might have been changed by this red flag. We think,
indeed.
Johnny, we're at the point now where we can say that the 55 car has won the championship.
Yeah, I mean, there are two routes that we can go now. One is to award half points, but thank you to a number of you that have pointed this out to me from the regulations, including time certain clock. If a race is suspended by the race director and cannot be resumed, no points will be awarded to the crews if the leader has completed fewer than 2 laps without a full course yellow or safety car. So they are 2 green flag laps, and we haven't yet had the 2 green flag laps. So we're at the point where no points can be awarded at this stage, which would still give the championship to car 55. So the end result is the same. It's more or less academic whether we get half points or no points. And, well, would we consider running a few laps under green to get the half points awarded? Maybe that's what's going through Eduardo Freitas' mind at the moment. But then you've got the complication that it is a 2-driver race.
Eduardo's not
Sorry,
the race
you're right.
director.
Exactly right, yeah. So Ramsey fires his decision. And may well have discussed it with Eduardo
absolutely
Freitas as well.
Have discussed it with the more senior race director.
Indeed, but it will be Fires' decision at the end of the day. Is the target? Well, clearly the target's to get the Armco fixed in time for the ELMS race.
That's coming on quite rapidly now. That repair.
Getting the broken bits is always the difficult bit.
Yeah, but I think in this case it was deconstruction, assess damage behind, assess the repair to the support structure, reconstruction. And that's where we have been. So due another bulletin about now as to what the expected time of recovery, but of course the clock is ticking down. 32 minutes now left on the race clock. In fact, 32 minutes and it has stopped. So that indicates that they do intend to restart this race.
Yeah, okay. Well, having had 15 minutes of it, I reckon, that's another 7.5 minutes perhaps with these drivers to then give the second drivers 22.5 minutes or so to get us to the finish. So it'll effectively be a 45-minute race. That would, fingers crossed, provide us with the 2 green flag racing laps that we require. We have already had one of them, technically speaking. Other questions now arising in terms of what sort of medical facilities do we need on site, i.e. does the helicopter need to come back again?
Correct.
And be in situ, which might take a bit longer as well, because I have honestly no idea where Jerome de Sadler has been taken to.
Right, so based on the steward's decision, the clock has been stopped. There's more information about the race length as soon as possible. So a lot of work going on here.
Yes.
And it's a fast-moving situation, as you can well imagine, and everything governed by safety foremost, and then the clock.
The other issue is that the problem about the interval between the 2 races, unless there's an option to run a little bit later on in the day with the ELMS race, so ELMS starts late, and therefore we can run beyond 10:50, the hour that this race was due to finish. So maybe we can extend a little bit into the lunch break effectively, but there's also the pit lane walkabout to think about, the grid build-up, and the cars being released about an hour before the race start for the European Le Mans Series.
So once again, apologies that we've not been able to bring you racing action, but it's blindingly clear why at this stage. And thanks so many of you for sticking with us, because we can see that you are. And happy to say too that the prevailing comment is, to my mind, the correct sort. There's one thing that matters, that's Jerome de Sadler.
Indeed.
And the second thing that matters is that as and when either these cars or the next race gets racing, this circuit is in a safe state to welcome them.
So yeah, the plan at the moment, as per the original timetable, or actually a slightly revised timetable, this is version 2 now, for Sunday the 16th of October. Pit lane was due to open at 11:55 for the European Le Mans Series cars. Pit lane closed at midday. Cars all to the grid by that point, and then drivers and mechanics to be placed beside the cars at 12:35, the 5-minute board at 12:52, and the race start at 1 o'clock. I just wonder whether there might be an option to push the race start of ELMS back to 1:30. Probably 2 o'clock is too tight, because that would take us all the way up to 6 o'clock. It will depend on noise restrictions here at the racetrack, because although it is relatively in the middle of nowhere, there are properties fairly nearby. There's a hotel at the top of the hill as well, so engine noise will be needing to be stopped, I'm sure, by a certain point later today. But still, we have 32 minutes on the clock, which is not still counting down. So the race officials, desperate at least to get half an hour more of racing done, and as long as we get a further green flag lap, then half points can be awarded. But we reckon provisionally that will give the championship title to Crew 55, the GMB Motorsport Honda NSX, Christian Poulsen, who drives at the moment.
And by the way, we should say deservedly so. You know, GMB Motorsport, what a great effort from them. Unfortunate end to the championship challenge from Bullet Racing, but GMB Motorsport have been pretty dominant here. All 3 of their cars winning races this season, which is quite remarkable in itself. No less remarkable was a podium clean sweep at Spa, of course, and we already knew that the team were going to be champions. We didn't know which crew was going to claim it, but now it is very clear it's going to be the 55.
Casper H. Jensen, the other driver who has been scoring exactly the same points as Christian Poulsen through the year. There have been no alterations in the driver combination. So they started with a win at Le Castellet in the south of France. Then a slightly off result at Imola, 5th place, which gleaned them 10. Road to Le Mans race, they finished in 2nd position behind Emanuele Busnelli and Fabio Babini, who, although they haven't done the final 2 rounds, the 2 Italians were scoring well up until Monza, the 2nd trip to Italy we made. It was a win for Casper Jensen and Christian Poulsen in the 2nd Road to Le Mans race. Then they finished 2nd at Monza behind Lars Engelbrecht Pedersen and Mikkel O. Pedersen, the non-related Pedersens in the sister Honda NSX. And last time out, another podium for Jensen and Poulsen at Spa-Francorchamps, but the win going to the other NSX. So each of the 3 Hondas have had a win this year in the 1 hour and 50 minute, the longer distance races. And Gustav Berg and Jens Moller delighted with that victory at Spa-Francorchamps. So it's looking very much like it's going to be another win for car 55 in slightly strange circumstances, and that will either give them half points or no points whatsoever, depending on how much more racing we can do.
Just looking back at the order we've got at the moment, that may well be adjusted for the timing of the red flag. But, the W10 racing car starting from pole position, and a great pole position run it was. Reiter Engineering, and it's been quite some introduction into LMP3 racing for Hans Reiter and his crew. They're hoping to come back with, they tell me, more than 1 car next year. Nielsen Racing, it's not been the season that Tony Wells and Colin Noble were looking for, but they've been fighting hard all year. They're number 7, Ligier. Racing Spirit of Le Mans, what a year they've had. Alexander Matschul and Tom Dillman. We are hearing, though, Johnny, that we're going to get a race restart.
Just popped up that message now, and it's at the top of your screens too. The race will restart at 10:40, which is 11 minutes from now. The final few bolts are being electrically screwed into position, and in a moment or two, all of those crews that have worked phenomenally hard for the best part of the last hour and 10 minutes will be exiting the scene. The track has been perfectly swept, no question about that. They've added leaf blowers and brooms to clear any nasty shards of carbon fibre that could easily work their way into Michelin tyres. That large lorry with the red boom will be taken away fairly shortly as well. And the message spreading around the pit lane with drivers that were on board at the time of the red flag being invited back in. And at some stage, therefore, there will be effectively a pit window to serve, driving times having been adjusted.
I think massively adjusted.
Well, yeah, but let's work on the basis that it's half of the race that each driver needs to do.
Yeah.
Now, according to the top of our screen, we've had 11 minutes and 49 seconds of the race, and there are 32 minutes to go. So, yeah, it's pretty much 10 minutes, isn't it? With maybe a 10-minute pit window, effectively, to get your driver out and the new driver in. And that's testament to everybody involved, but also the desire to get some racing in, however short it may be, to get this race completed to a half-distance fashion, to at least be able to award some points at the end of the season.
Well, what we've effectively done is convert this to a sprint race, haven't we? And by the way, not influenced by Formula One and their qualifying, but
no.
But it will be interesting to see just how different this looks and feels once we're back into racing relatively shortly now. That's in under 10 minutes time now. So
it will, once the final lap is done, resemble something like a 45-minute race. Add 32 to 11 and 49, so that's 43 minutes and 49 seconds, and we may well have an extra lap depending on where the race leader is at the time of the checkered flag. So Freddie Hunt getting the fireproof balaclava back on. Helmet will follow together with the hands device, and he'll climb on board the number 76 Reiter Engineering machine. Presumably what happened to cause the red flag is still being looked at, but I mean, will there be in-race penalties to any of the cars involved that we will learn about later on?
It's going to be a busy half hour, Johnny.
Yes.
There's going to be a lot going on, and you will forgive us if there might be a couple of gaps in where we can catch up with regulations. I think we'll be calling this one as we see it.
Yeah, often we do get sent an adjusted driving time, but to be honest, it's relatively simple in Michelin Le Mans Cup in that the rule is normally 45 minutes, I think, is a minimum drive time, or 50 minutes. So, you know, it is the same for whether you're a bronze, a silver, or a gold driver. We don't have to worry about different driver combinations as we have
I do
in
feel
ELMS.
Terrifically sorry for Nick Jones. So the Team Parker Racing couldn't get the car off the grid. They then have the regulation that says you can start the race after the field has passed. Something went wrong with that as well. They then eventually did start the race, and immediately it's gone to red flag, and they've basically seen all of Nick Jones's driving time gone. I don't think he's actually completed a lap at full speed.
I think that's right. I can't see a... Well, there's a 12 minutes and 52 seconds,
his out lap.
Was the
he's
out lap,
on his out lap
and
when
then
the red flag came out.
Indeed. Yeah.
It's a long drive back.
Well, maybe they'll be able to stay here for an extra day or so on the beach.
Well, hopefully they're involved. We do have lots of testing the next 2 or 3 days here at Portimão. It's always good to hang on for a day or so to see just exactly who's driving what, where and when. Not expecting much by way of new machinery this year. It's been, in the past we have seen that. We saw the first sight of the brand new Porsche 911 RSRs here some years ago, and then the revised cars. But yeah, I just hope they've got plans that mean that this doesn't feel like the disappointment it absolutely must be. So the restart, whatever else happens, will be with the number 11 car in the lead of this pack. I'm sure we will get more information presently about just exactly how this is going to work through. Freddie Hunt's being shown will start second in the Reiter Engineering number 76 car. The one there is one good thing, and only one, frankly, good thing about the length of this delay, which is adrenaline and emotion, which come when you've got drama at this kind of level, Johnny, has had time to dispel.
True enough. And everyone maybe is now taking a slightly more considered approach to the restart, and also how they viewed the whole incident that began this scenario. Stefan Riquelme back into the H24 hydrogen-powered car, which is positioned 35th on the grid and in behind to John Brownson's car, but we can't necessarily believe the current timing screen either, and effectively that becomes null and void anyway, that order, and it just sets up the grid formation for the restart. Alexander Matchel in the teal and black liveried Racing Spirit of Le Mans car. They will
complete. Well done. Well done, crew.
Brand new Armco in position there. You can see exactly the area that was affected. I was about to say, won't Alexander Matchel and Tom Dillman be so grateful that they got the job done with a round to spare, and they didn't have to be relying on scoring points in this massively disrupted round of the Michelin Le Mans Cup. Daniel Schneider in the number 32 car. Again, he will be delivered into the right starting position in a moment or two again, but I'm loath to take the positions from the timing screen because I don't think they're completely accurate.
Eduardo Freitas is looking at the work that's been done, making sure. We're going to see one more time what happened here. Thorsten Kratz passed by Freddie Hunt. Kratz, he did pick up speed, and did he slow down? That's the question I think race control will be asking themselves.
Yeah.
That is the, somewhat earlier, the results for the car. That's the results of the barrier. It did its job. That's the key part here. And so did the car. Well,
the safety cell remaining entirely intact. The problem, the one thing you can't avoid is a massive deceleration speed. And that, from what we were hearing from Fabien Laverne, is that the back pain is the biggest problem for Geraint de Sadeleer right now.
I mean, an emotion in two regards. One is his teammate, I'm sure his friend, and the other one is the race. They're here to race. Remember, that's what it's all about. They're here to race because they're passionate about it. They're here to race because it matters to them and everyone around them. But I'm sure his thoughts are very much with Geraint de Sadeleer. Safety car is in position at the head of the grid, beginning to start to see some of that equipment leaving the scene of the repair. We are 3 minutes from the point where this race should restart. Eduardo, I'm sure, talking to race control, giving his assessment of whether or not 10:40 is achievable or maybe another minor delay.
It's now 10:45, in fact.
Yep, there you go.
There has been an additional time, but it's still 32 minutes that we are scheduled to be going racing for, so that will take us through till just after 11:15, and therefore perhaps an alteration required as to what will be happening in the intervening period between the end of this race and the start of the final round of the year for the European Le Mans Series. As I say, I think there's scope to start the ELMS maybe at 1:30 rather than 1 o'clock.
Cars to be replaced on the grid. Now, I'm not quite sure exactly what that means, but are we going to start this in grid formation?
I think it's more... they're in the wrong order.
That's what I thought it might mean. But
we don't know yet whether this is going to be effectively a safety car restart. The safety car is there, but is it now back into pace car format? So are we going to have a 2x2 start to the race? Or will it be what we were trying to do earlier on at 9:15 and a nose-to-tail restart? There is one of the three Honda NSXs. I think that is the 55 car. Difficult to tell with its door open, but with the orange trim of Christian Poulsen. Actually, no, because the Mercedes was ahead of it, wasn't it? So it's the one position behind the Schnitzelarm racing machine. Here is Christoph Cresp's car being pushed into a more appropriate position for the restart to the race. So the race order will have been taken back a lap from when the red flag came out.
Information in the pit lane. We are currently trying to replace the car on the grid in the proper order.
Yeah.
please follow the marshal and official instruction. We are trying to replace the car in a good order on the grid. Please follow official and marshal's instructions.
So there we go. I don't think it's going to be a grid formation as such, so a 2x2 start to the race, but
in which
to
case,
make
why are we moving the 76 car?
To allow the gap for, because where is Alexander Matchell? He should be tucked in behind Freddie.
Fair point.
And we then don't have Jerome de Sadelia, but probably the 77 car needs to be in about 6th, because Auden Gudmundsson had a good start as well to his original grid spot. So it's really just creating the gaps to allow the spaces for the repositioned cars to be fitted. And question remains about what happens with Nick Jones's car as well. Is he going to be waved by to gain one of his laps back again? I mean, it doesn't really matter. He's so many laps back.
No, it's track time now, isn't it?
Yeah. But it just needs to be that the race leader, Torsten Kratz, is the first car behind the pace car. So they might well just say to Nick, just go around, have one of your laps back, because we stopped you on the main straight because of the red flag. Here comes Matchell's car then, in the Racing Spirit of Le Mans colours, so champions for this year. So
if not clear, if you're watching this kind of LMP3 Jenga at the moment, what is being done here by race control, under the auspices of race control, is to put the cars for the restart in the correct order. Because of the confusion that came from the recovery from that incident, it does mean that multiple cars in this field are not in the order they should be for the restart. So we've got about 4 minutes for the teams to achieve that.
Yeah, still might be a little bit ambitious, I'm afraid to say, because the repositioning of cars is never necessarily a quick process. All of the relevant personnel have to be in the right place at the right time. But a lot of give and take here, quite understandably so. Louis Saint-Juan's number 40 Graf racing car now being pushed a little further up the grid, but it's starting to resemble the order that we had when, unfortunately, that huge accident occurred for Jerome de Sadelia, and we have to, of course, take him out of the equation as well. But it should be the 11 WTM racing car ahead of the 76 Reiter engineering machine, then the 10 of Racing Spirit of Le Mans, followed by, well, quite possibly then Tony Wells, but it remains to be seen. Here is the 69 of Maurice Smith being pushed forward now as well. So they have been called next. And I think sensibly now, actually, a second line has been decided right in the middle of the track, behind the pace car. There's been quite a lot of muddling of the order, unfortunately, here. And now the Parker Racing Porsche is being pushed to a slightly more appropriate position too. 10:45, unfortunately, is going to come and go here.
It is, rather.
And it may well be 10:50. Again, the 32 minutes is still there.
I do wonder whether or not they're going to move the safety car up here to give them room.
Yes. Well, that would make sense as well.
It's there's not a lot of room to do it, is there?
Well, none of this, quite obviously, has been planned. They will have had it probably down on paper as a what if, but then putting it into practice is often so much more complicated. A few years ago, I remember a race at Spa, which had to be moved in the day because of the bad weather coming in. It's now going to be 10:55 as the time that the race will resume, by the way. So 10:55, but still for 32 minutes.
Okay.
And at the 11 minutes and 49 seconds that we have already had, still aiming for, ideally, a 45-minute race, therefore.
We'll bring you officially news of what we believe to be some changes to the timetable as soon as we can confirm that. And I'm aware that there's been some social media traffic from one or two of the teams, apparently with information from the organisation, but we're waiting to see. That could still be fluid, which is the reason we're not giving you that information at the moment. I do have the information that you may have seen on social media, but we're not confirming that until we have got a confirmed start time for this race.
Indeed.
And that's just changed in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, true. There is clearly some flexibility in the timetable, though, to alter the ELMS start time, which I'm pleased to be generally hearing across the board. I think that there was a danger of starting it, more than an hour late because of the time pressures of the track restrictions. And also there is meant to be an award ceremony tonight as well. And, the danger is that the final race in ELMS will get very close to the start time for that.
Apologies, I've just been looking elsewhere. If you just confirm what we're seeing there, which is the first lap under the safety car will go via the pit lane.
Okay.
Now, that might be just to assist the machinery you can see at the back of the grid to reposition themselves.
Yes. So we'll be under the safety car at 10:55
in just under 10 minutes.
So is that the reason why it is a 32-minute restart time to allow for one lap at the start of it, i.e. about 2, maybe 3 minutes to be held under safety car? But if they're going through the pit lane, they're not then going to say that's the start of the race, so we're going to have at least 2 laps under the safety car.
Yeah.
And still half an hour, though, billed as the
quite unique if
time.
they did go to green in the pit lane, wouldn't it, really?
Looking to try and avoid an incident on the track, yeah. No overtaking till you get to the timing line at the end of pit road, guys. And don't cross the blend line either. But then by the time you get to turn 1, you are racing. No, we'll scrap that idea even before it started. This is what we're doing with Nick Jones's car. So I wonder whether he might be waved, in fact, back onto, well, not the lead lap, but one lap to.
Well, this is correct if you think about it.
Yeah,
I mean, under a safety car, he could and should have joined the back of the train.
Yes. It's just a bit of an effort to push it all the way past all the other cars.
But all the way to the back anyway. So
okay, fine. And as long as you get it up to momentum and then just maintain that.
Yeah.
So no other cars being moved.
No.
I would be hopeful, therefore, that the order is now correct for a restart. There's the current order in GT3 with the 55 GMB Motorsport Christian Poulsen car ahead of Jens Moller and PJ Hyatt's Schnitzelarm Racing Mercedes in 3rd place then in car number 8. But after these moments of reflection for the drivers at the front of the field, there'll be then the opportunity to get going again and approach a race that really they will have not planned for. This is a launch into the unknown in a sense.
We've not had this ever in the Michelin Le Mans Cup.
No.
We've had races that have been peppered with incidents.
Of course.
But nothing remotely on this kind of scale.
Yeah.
And
a significant stoppage eating into well over half of the race. This stoppage has now lasted for over 90 minutes, in fact.
We're about to get the 1 minute board, I think, before starting engines, and then we can get back, we hope, to some semblance of normality, although there's anything other than normal.
So by my reading of the instructions we've had at the bottom of the screen, once the green flag is waved, that's effectively the restart of the race, and the clock will begin to tick down, even though we'll still be behind the safety car. The safety car will do 1 lap, then it'll bring everybody down pit road, and it'll do another lap, and then hopefully at the end of those 2 laps we'll be racing again. But frankly, we're a little bit in the dark here, as everybody else is perhaps, as to the format of the remaining 32 minutes. There will need to be a pit stop at some stage, and everybody will be aware, I'm sure, having perhaps been emailed now, a revised driving time schedule.
Can also now confirm, with thanks to the ELMS media team and management, a confirmed change to the start time of the ELMS race as a result of this. It's moving back 30 minutes. 1:30 p.m. local will be the start of the European Le Mans Series race. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen.
1 minute to start the session. 1 minute to resume the session.
And that will be 1 minute by my reading for the race clock to start counting down as well. And right on cue, I've just had the email from Morgan Tison from the championship to say there's been another revised timetable, so we have that in our possession now as well. We can look at in more detail later in the day, but that will confirm the 1:30 start to
30 seconds, 30 seconds. Seconds.
So at this point in, well, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, whichever it may be,
10,
looking for the top
9,
of the screen,
8,
top left,
7,
as you watch
6,
the coverage for the 32
5,
minutes to
4,
start to tick down.
3,
and I think the first
2,
4 or 5 minutes, therefore,
1.
will be held under safety car effectively.
Start.
Yeah, there's the green flag, and the 32 minutes continue, or starts rather, to tick down.
I think one of the reasons, by the way, for the first lap going by pit lane maybe, I think we are going to see some cars stopping. I'm hearing that a number of these cars suffered underfloor damage going through that debris field, and it may be that for the case of safety, or at least for the teams to take a look, we might see a number of these cars actually stopping. So it's a trip into the unknown here, Johnny.
Very much so.
Clock is ticking. We're down under 32 minutes now, of course.
So under the revised timetable for the ELMS, the pit lane's now going to open at 25 minutes past 12. It'll be closed at 12:30, and effectively everything's been put back by 30 minutes. So the race start for the 6 hours of Portimão will be at 1:30 Portuguese time. Remember, we're an hour behind the rest of Central European summer time. So 2:30 if you're elsewhere on the continent, but if you're in the UK, we are at exactly the same time here in Portugal. Now that the cars have left the grid, that allows the blowers to access bits of the asphalt that they couldn't get to earlier on, just to blow any residual debris off onto the grass. And finally, after a red flag that lasted for 1 hour and 35 minutes, we are rolling again with 32 minutes of race time. That's a stipulated distance that has been designated by race control after much thinking about how much racing we could legitimately do. As long as we do more than 2 green flag laps, then you can award half points. We'd already had 1 racing lap at the very start of the race at 9 o'clock this morning, but the ideal...
I think we had 2 under green flag.
Okay, so you think we were already there? Why not?
I think the Brossard car was not off on lap 1.
He wasn't, but Brossard, I think, was off on lap 2. Then but it's a question of when was the safety car issued?
The safety car was issued some little time later. I think we've had at least 2 green flag laps.
All right. Well, Alcamel's archiving timing system will give us the answer in due course. Those documents will not have been uploaded in race, but will be accessible later today.
By the way, of course, the other reason why they're going down pit lane is because there was debris underneath some of those cars.
Yeah.
Stopped on pit lane, so there is still a little bit of debris to be cleared. That's why the sweeper is still on pit lane. That's why there are still circuit vehicles there. They're going to be coming down pit lane to allow the final clear up, and hopefully that can be done in the course of 1 lap. That's why suddenly it all becomes clear.
But if any of these cars do need to stop because of underfloor damage, they can do so as well. Yes. That wouldn't be a reason to bring them into the pit lane, because they could have done that anyway. But there you see
they're on pit lane.
Yeah, lots of personnel still there. So we can't wave the cars into full green flag conditions from the pit lane, as we've established. So there'll be 1 more lap, and then I think we should be able to go racing for about 25 minutes to finish this off. Will everybody dive for the pit lane at that point is the next question. We've had 15 minutes of the race when you add the 11 and 57 to it.
I'm just watching here as to whether or not anybody...
I'm not sure they're being told that they can pit at this stage.
Unless they retire, is the point.
Yeah.
That's the other point, is it may well be that there is damage that we can't see to 1 or more of these cars, that they feel they cannot continue safely, but that's... We'll wait and see with that one. Certainly there are officials there pretty well indicating that it is a run-through pit lane. It's the safety aspect more than anything else. Cars have come to a stop in this queue. Oh, no, he can't restart the car. No, he can. It's one of the
It's
NSXs.
uphill there, very uphill indeed.
That is the championship leader.
Yes, it is. Well, again, it shouldn't matter this, even if it's a DNF for car 55. There aren't enough points available to fellow crews in GMB Motorsport to usurp the 55 as the championship winners. But that's the issue. It's trying to do a hill start in a GT3 car. I mean, they're hard enough to start on the level, for goodness sake. But I don't think there's much clutch travel at all in one of these Honda NSXs, or indeed any of the other GT3 cars in the category. And poor old Christian Poulsen has now dropped all the way through the class. He's going again.
Go on, Christian.
So the letter P, the blue letter P, will appear against his name now.
So, yeah.
But he'll have to start from that position now.
So he's
in
gone
the
from
field.
front to back of the field.
Yeah.
And one of the GMB cars did stop in pit lane.
Yes, it did. So was that the 88? I think it was, because the cars behind it in the pit road have already rejoined. So John Brownson's back on the race circuit. So that was Lars Engelbrecht Pedersen. Now, was that in order to do a driver change? No, Lars Engelbrecht is still on board. Christian Poulsen back into the race. Stefan Riquelme has not emerged from the pit lane in the H24 Edes.
They may well be taking the option to fuel that car.
Yes.
And finish the race.
Yes.
It is a single driver.
And there it is, in fact.
Completely different set of regulations for this car.
And it has to fuel, in inverted commas, in a very different area as well.
Fill, not fuel, is what I'm told by.
But that's liquid hydrogen being pumped in, I think, to the cell itself from that huge station.
Yeah. But it can't do a full normal stint on that fill. It may be able to do this half hour.
So nearing the end of a second safety car lap, we are picking up the pace now, and the safety car lights are still on. Here they all come into the pit road. So the safety car is going to have no cars whatsoever behind this, and they're all in to do the driver changes effectively, or certainly the top 6 are, and I think pretty much everybody else will follow suit. So we were never going to go back to green flag conditions at the end of what is lap 8 of the race. And here we go, Alex.
23 car has gone through.
All right, so John Sharman will lead and catch up with the safety car in a moment or two. Now, though, have we got more confusion on the main straight, because Sharman has dramatically slowed.
Has he missed the pit?
And Klaus Abelin deciding to stay out, but because we're on the safety car, Abelin can't overtake. The safety car's probably about half a lap round now. Yes, it's just heading into turn 5. And have we had a positional change yet between those cars? Well, Louis Saint-Juan has emerged as the race leader now. Yes. Were it not for an horrendous accident earlier and sadly a driver in hospital, this is a real spectacle now, because I have no idea what's going to happen next, Graham Goodwin. I mean, we're laughing purely because of this situation, which has produced the most bonkers race possible.
And mayhem in pit lane. We've got cars pitting in chevron formation, nose in.
Yes, because there's such limited room in the pit lane. Here's the race leader, Louis Saint-Juan for Graf Racing.
Having pitted.
Yes. And was it not Louis, though, that started the car?
It was Louis that started the car.
So that might be a driver ID problem, because I can't see any other reason why they would want it to have stopped the Graf car. Back on the move is the H24 machine.
Which, by the way, is going to emerge well up this field.
Yes. Top 10 finish for H24, perhaps?
Quite possible.
It will need to carry quite a bit of more speed. It was Louis Saint-Juan who started the Graf Racing car from 5th position. So I'm sure Graf have done their driver change.
There is the H24 car out. I think that car is running 6th or 7th place with 2 cars that haven't pitted.
Yeah. So John Schaumann and Klaus Abelin, I reckon, will pit this time around. There's a massive gap now between Saint-Juan and the 2nd place car of Schaumann in the United Autosports car. Now a car, has it stalled at the end of the pit lane, or is it being shown the red light? It might be that it's the red light because the safety car is due across the line. Yes, the safety car has just crossed the line, so everybody here is being told they cannot rejoin at this point because the safety car Crocodile is working its way round turns 1, 2 and 3.
Which means they've lost a lap.
Yes, it does. Compared to whom, though? Because, well, Sanchuan's back in again. Luis Sanchuan's come back in the Graf racing car.
I don't think he could stop. I don't think there was space for him to stop. I think that's what's happened.
Okay. So the 40 car of Graf just came in and perhaps was waved by. That's because they didn't do, that's why they didn't do the driver change. First car behind the safety car is now Nick Jones. It might actually be Scott Mulvern by this point, if they're deciding to give Scott some driving time. No, it is still Nick.
Yeah.
Here come 2 of the 3 Hondas back into the race. The Schnitzelarm Racing Mercedes, by the way, is leading in GT3.
Looked to me there as if Klaus had a little bit of a tumble.
Okay. Well, it's Andrew Ferguson who now leads the motor race after 9 laps for 24/7 Motorsport. They have made a pit stop. Which of the Fergusons started that car is the next question, though, because if it was Andrew, and it was, they again have perhaps been unable to do their driver change. It was only a drive-through of 33 seconds, so again, that's not a drive-through penalty. That's a let's come in and do our driver change, and there simply just wasn't enough room.
Well, the car that I think we've got an orange car behind the safe. There's 2 cars behind. Is that the second MV2S car? It is, isn't it? The first car in that train, it is the 11 car, by the way, that looks to be leading this race effectively. Safety car is coming in.
Which is the Leo Weiss WTM machine. I think that is the MV2S.
We're going green flag racing.
Yeah. So we're looking out for the WTM machine, which is none of these cars, by the way. There is a Racing Spirit of Le Mans car in the mixture, but Nick Jones, the car right behind the safety car, Nick's suggesting to me that he's going to be peeling off into pit road pretty swiftly. Yes. What the red flag allowed actually for TS Corsa was for their car to be fixed, because Kai Aski is now in the motor race, car 73, many laps down, but at least he'll get a chance to do some driving. And finally, after about an hour and 55 minutes, we are racing again, plummeting down towards turn 1 with cars overlapping. I'm trying to pick out the race leader, who is still Andrew Ferguson, not made a stop yet, car 27, but will have to come in to do a driver change at some point in the leading Ligier, so it should leave Leo Weiss in the number 11 WTM racing car as our race leader. Are you following all this, Graham?
Sort of. I think I'm right. We're just looking to see just how many cars we've got on the lead lap, and the answer is 15.
Yeah, okay.
But Leo Weiss, the writer engineering car, Mansilla Haug is currently 3rd place. Tom Dillman 4th. Colin Noble, Malte Jakobsen, Michael Markussen, Andy Merrick, James Winslow, David Drew, Wayne Boyd, Felipe Lars and Mark Basseng. Emilio Cardet and Garnet Patterson appear to be the only cars on this lead lap.
20 minutes to go. Safety car procedure, unsurprisingly, is under investigation. Here is Leo Weiss battling for 2nd at the moment, but we think this will become the lead battle as soon as Andrew Ferguson pits. And it's Leo Weiss versus Mads Seelerhaug.
I think they've already gone by, haven't they?
On the screen, it's still suggesting that Andrew Ferguson is about 46 seconds up the road. He hasn't come in for a 3rd time just yet.
Okay.
There's going to be a drive-through penalty for car number 9 because of the incident with car 6. That was Jocelyn Brossard.
Just goes to show they hadn't forgotten that one.
No. Finally, we find out that it was the AT Racing car, therefore, for the Talcanitzers, junior and senior. So Andrew Ferguson is still leading the race because he hasn't pitted at the end of lap 11 either. Great times coming through, though, at the moment for both Leo Weiss in the number 11 Duquesne and Mads Seelerhaug, the man from Lillehammer in Norway, running in 3rd position, soon to be 2nd.
We've got a yellow flag at turn 7. There's been an incident at turn 7, and there's some very quick guys in this battle for currently 2nd place. I'll tell you at the moment what's happening. It might be the 29 car that's in trouble here.
43 hasn't got to the end of the 2nd sector, though, either. We're waiting for car 43, now being shown as stopped, and there is Josh Skelton. Josh Skelton at turn 7. What happened here? So right in front of 2 of the 3 Honda NSXs. 88 is one of the GMB Motorsport cars. That's Jan Magnussen, who's already taken charge of that car. How far is Jan from the race lead? Not too far at all.
Well,
but he's got some talents to get by, including Kay Cozzolino.
Yeah, so the GT battle led at the moment by Gunnar Jeanette in the AMG, the Schnitzel car, the number 8 car. Then the Bullet Racing Aston Martin and Valentina Haase-Klot, Kay Cozzolino, Gustav Birch, Jan Magnussen and Kasper Jensen. Scott Malvern is now in the race, but a little way further back.
David Drew's the fastest car on track, just doing a 1:38.873. David is 10th, and having just taken the Graf Racing car over from Louis Saint-Juan, who, remember, had to make 2 pit stops. One was an aborted attempt at a driver change, but he couldn't find the space. Then he came back in again and has handed over to Drew. Here is Kai Askey working his way through some GT traffic. So Kai is down in 37th position in the repaired TS Corsa car that was involved in a crash at the start of the race very early this morning when Pietro Peccinini had nowhere to go to avoid a spinning Mark Crader.
Yeah, but also the battle there just briefly spotted there. There is the 24/7 car. So now we're going to the lead battle. WTM Racing, Reiter Engineering, Racing Spirit Le Mans, Cool Racing, Malte Jakobsen closing in on this group.
Over the line go now the new leaders, because Andrew Ferguson is in from the race lead. Remember, he attempted a pit stop, couldn't find the space between the currently pitting teams, so has to do it on this lap, and that has now waved into the race lead. Leo Weiss, Mads Seylerhout, Tom Dillman in 3rd, who's very much with them, and then you've got Malte Jakobsen as well. We've had to wait for this, folks, but this is a grandstand finish in the final 15 minutes.
And David Drew, again, another fastest lap of the race. So Drew is racing hard here. It's double yellows, by the way, at turn 7, yellows flags at turn 6. So they need to take this into account in this battle. We're in the incident zone now. So
Valentin Haase-Klot there with a forceful manoeuvre, and that was for the race lead on Gunnar Jeanette in the Schnitzelarm Racing Mercedes, and the Mercedes slightly off the road. Like to see that one again, really. The gap was sort of half open, but I'm not sure Valentin was fully alongside when the contact was made. But the Aston Martin from Bullet Racing will now lead GT3 ahead of Kay Cozzolino in the AF Corsa Ferrari.
Warning flag going to James Winslow at the moment, but that doesn't matter just in the middle of this lot. 1, 2, 3, really close together. Malte Jakobsen is pulling back time on this trio. I think he's going to make it 4. There is the 4th place car, 1.5 seconds back from the rear of Tom Dillman. 14 minutes to go.
As they thunder their way across the stripe once again. There's the Team Parker Racing Porsche, now being driven by Scott Malvern, as the 27 car, former race leader, rejoins. And as it comes back onto track, really, Mads Seylerhout, I would say, had no choice but to run a little bit wide. But you've always got to be cautious of track limits down there. Under pressure now is the Norwegian from Tom Dillman,
A little bit of traffic
champion.
coming as well. The Team Parker car is the... So we've got formation lappery here from the GMB cars. It's going to be some finish photo for them in a championship winning year, isn't it? Won't be a 1, 2, 3 for them, but they will be correctly delighted with this programme this year.
So Gustav Birch, here's the contact between the Aston Martin and the Mercedes for the race lead.
There was
Need
a
another
gap.
angle of that, really. Oh, here we go. Perfect timing. And race control will have access to a few other angles as well. There was definitely, the door was left ajar. I'm just not sure it was wide enough for the Vantage to squeeze fully through. But the result is that Valentin Haase-Klot takes the GT3 lead, and because of the spin, Gunnar Jeanette rejoining down in 6th position behind Kay Cozzolino's Ferrari and the 3 GMB Hondas. No change in the race lead. Leo Weiss at the moment able to fend off Mads Seylerhout, and Tom Dillman isn't quite close enough. Gunnar Jeanette looking for a way by the first of the NSXs. That is Kasper H. Jensen. And I'm sure Jan Magnussen isn't going to be pushing too hard here, considering his teammate Gustav Berg is just in front. But there's a little bit of pressure for the young man Berg, who is the son of the team owner, to soak up.
Yeah, a win, of course, last time out for the young man with Jens Müller. Great team spirit between those three crews. We're going to find out what's more important here, aren't we? Is it going to be the win? Is it going to be the three abreast photograph across the line? Either way, we'll know in about 12 minutes' time. Yeah, Weiss leads. Mats Haug right with him, also right with them. Tom Dillman beginning to pull away a little here from Malte Jakobsen as Gunnar Jeanette almost gets alongside the third of the Hondas. So he can do it here. 55 playing a little bit of rear gunner, and there's a bit of side-by-side there from the 44 and the 88.
So I was saying,
change position.
Maybe.
Oh,
and now
a
contact
hit
for Berg. Now, who hit him? Was it their team car, or was it Gunnar Jeanette, who's off on exactly the same part of the racetrack as he was earlier on? That is the 44 of Gustav Berg, now stranded on the exit at turn 13.
Well, if you'd have asked me, had that AMG not run off, I'd have said it was his teammate. No, it was the AMG.
Mercedes. It was the Mercedes of Gunnar Jeanette trying a last-ditch manoeuvre.
Exactly the same place he got hit himself, which, by the way, has caused a drive-through penalty for the 99.
Which is the Aston Martin. So
at the moment,
leading the way, but no longer. So that will allow Kate Cosolino into the GT3 lead.
Could be and 44 has stopped.
So Gustav Berg, son of team owner René Berg, that's the GmbH in the team's title, and Gunnar Jeanette has worked his way around a bit further, I think. That's no longer turn 13, or maybe it is with the yellow flag still being displayed, so Gunnar hasn't moved at all. But yes, a chance then to talk about the AF Corsa car that was initially driven by Hiroshi Koizumi. Didn't really have a chance to talk about Hiroshi at all, but he was there in the AF Corsa car when the red flag was issued. And
great qualifying from him.
Yeah,
really impressive qualifying from him. Full course yellow is coming. It's had everything, this, isn't it?
Now we've got an FCY. Yes, that ticks the final box as far as I can tell. And Leo Weiss, having had to soak up some pressure from Freddie Hunt's teammate Mats Haug, now will be probably a bit grateful for this caution period, which might take a further 3 or 4 minutes out. Everybody ducks to 80 kilometers per hour as circulating speed. And they will have been counted into that either by the race director or by a team member. And sadly, 2 of the GT3 cars appear to be out of the race. 44 Gustav Berg, and after contact from this Mercedes, the number 8 Schnitzelarm Racing Mercedes of Gunnar Jeanette.
Let's watch again. Up the inside, Gunnar. That was way too ambitious, I'm afraid, again.
He wasn't going to make the corner there.
He wasn't trying to overtake that car, he was trying to overtake the car behind him. And it was almost a carbon copy of the move that Valentina Haase-Klotz did. And is taking that drive-through under a full course yellow, which I'm not sure you're allowed to do.
You're certainly not allowed to take extra 5-second penalties within pit stops during a full course yellow, because everybody else on the racetrack can't go as fast as they would do at race speed. It's a nice try from Bullet Racing, but they, I'm sure, will be told a drive-through can only be done under green flag conditions. It's meant to, therefore, introduce a delay to your race, which is severely, it's a much better situation to do that when cars on the racetrack are circulating at 1/3 race pace. So I'm sure they will be told they'll have to do that again.
Yeah, at the moment, out ahead of the Ferrari.
Yeah, okay.
But
well, it's 60 kph down pit road, but it's actually quite a fast entry into pit lane, although that would have been 80 k's in this scenario. So yeah, 99 rejoining ahead of the 51 Ferrari. Now the incident between 44 and 8, which was the GT3 crash at turn 13, is under investigation.
Should say, by the way, likely to be the final time.
You're right about the 99 Aston Martin.
Yeah, the Aston Martin reported to the stewards who are doing the drive-through under the full course yellow. Likely to be the last time we see a Ferrari 488 GT3 in the Michelin Le Mans Cup, with that car's replacement as the principal weapon of choice from Ferrari's customer racing by the new 296 GT3 from next year.
If a team wanted to come to the championship
Still
with a
homologated.
488, they are allowed to.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Ferrari couldn't say, no, we don't want you to race it because it's not our current car.
Well, they might, but, you know.
Yeah, but it is still a legal car.
It is still
in the
homologation,
homologation, yeah. So there's the chance that a slightly older machine could come back. But certainly, when we're talking AF Corsa, they will be going the new car, no question.
I'm hearing that an astonishing total of those new cars has been sold, and the number I'm hearing is 100.
Really? Wow, already. And you can't even race it this year. So everybody getting set for an explosion of new Ferrari material from the new year. How long is this?
44 appears to be out of this race. The 8 is out of this race. The 43 is out of this race. The 29 has gone too. And it's with the message we've got on the screens, Johnny, the de facto leader in GT is now the Ferrari.
Indeed, because the report will go in and that will inevitably result in possibly a stop-go penalty, maybe just another drive-through without being too draconian. The 8 car still requires recovery, so the full course yellow not likely to be withdrawn
just about
yet.
in the place of safety there, I think.
Okay, so it had been moved and maybe far enough from the track, but still on the outside of turn 13. It is easy to see a car going off there in the closing stages. Only 6.5 minutes to go. Leo Weiss further up the road from Mad Silerhow than I would have expected, in truth. I thought they were closer than that under full course yellow conditions, but there is the gap, which under these speeds is timed at 2.5 seconds. It's more like probably 1.5 seconds when we get back to fully green. And behind them, much closer, between Tom Dillman and Malte Jakobsen, who'd been taking chunks of time out of the Frenchman ahead of him. So Jakobsen for Cool Racing, eyeing a podium, no doubt, but will he have enough race minutes left in this? There's also now a warning flag for a couple of drivers for the abuse of track limits, but it's just a warning at this stage for, amongst others, Jan Magnussen, in fact, in the 88 GMB Motorsport car.
Well, it's a lack of experience on his part.
Yeah. That was a very neat and tidy overtake, I thought, though, on his teammate Gustav Berg before the contact came from Gunnar Jeanette.
He'd go places, I think, Jan.
Yeah, he's got some potential. Yeah. Some potential. Another message incoming from Faizi Ramzi Fayez regarding the final stages of this race.
All cars to bear left on the start-finish straight, exiting T15. All cars to bear left. At the start straight, exiting T15, we have marshals collecting debris on the start straight under the gantry. We have marshals collecting debris under the gantry.
And there they are, doing a very brave and successful job indeed. Now that, I assume, has come from perhaps one of the GT cars.
Start straight is clear. Start straight.
So that's all been sorted. And still, I think, recovery taking place. Haven't been given yet an indication as to when the full course yellow will be withdrawn. Normally we get about a 30-second warning of that happening. And Torsten Kratz will be desperately hoping that it doesn't get withdrawn so they can get a race win.
I'll tell you what, race control and the circuit management will be very pleased to draw a line under this one. It's been, well, spectacular in its complete unusualness.
Yeah, it's just been one thing after another, unfortunately. And the biggest thing, of course, the crash for Jerome de Sadelier. He flown to a local hospital for treatment, and we await, hopefully, good news regarding his condition. But a badly damaged race car for him, and then the resultant 1 hour and 40-minute red flag, which has dramatically changed the narrative of this race. It was billed to be 1 hour and 50 minutes, 2 drivers. Well, we have managed to get 2 drivers into these cars, but really the opening stint was a non-event, with possibly 2 racing laps held, but barely more than that, and then restarting under the safety car. And the first thing that was then done was everybody dived to the pits to attempt to do their driver changes at once, but there just wasn't the space in the pit lane for all 39 cars, or 37 cars, whatever it was at that point, to do their changes. Away from Torsten Kratz. watching his teammate Leo Weiss completing these final few laps, and we are going to get some racing in the closing stages. From 15 seconds from now, we will be back to green.
Look at the gap for the leader.
It has grown. It definitely has grown under this full course yellow.
3, 2.
But look at Jakobsen.
Full course yellow removed. Full course yellow removed.
And now Jakobsen, if he wants to, can overtake Tom Dillman before the line, because coming out of a full course yellow, you're racing straight away. And Jakobsen is right on the gearbox there of the number 10 Tom Dillman-driven championship winners, the Racing Spirit of Le Mans car.
And watch Colin Noble as well. He's right there with this group. So straight back to a battle for the lead, side by side. Through goes Jakobsen. And up the inside goes Tom Dillman again. Here comes Colin Noble. He fancies a bit of this as well. The Bullet Racing Aston Martin is a kind of fly in the ointment at the moment, isn't it?
Although good driving from Valentin Haskell, I thought, to try and stay out of the way as much as possible.
Noble
is
goes by Jakobsen.
So Noble's got ahead and really caused a problem for Mount Jakobsen. Jakobsen at one point had a very good run indeed on Tom Dillman, as now the two leaders slip by the H24 car. To the high side goes Colin Noble of Stefan Richelme, and the Aston Martin again having to go wide to allow the quicker cars through. It's 1, 2, 3 for the lead, because Dillman is right on the tail now. And is the door open for a lead change? Yes, it is. There goes Mads Seilerhaug. And what about Tom Dillman, who wants a bit of it as well? Colin Noble could make the podium yet too, because wide through turn 12 went Leo Weiss. And here comes Dillman. Surely he will plug that gap. He'll have the inside line at 13.
Got him. No,
Weiss will have the inside for 40.
Noble on the inside now.
So Noble didn't quite get third. Mads Seilerhaug struggling to get the hammer down because he had Honda NSX in front of him, but does now manage to get one between he and Leo Weiss, who's dropped a second, and Dillman could make it third, in fact, for the German, because Tom Dillman overlapping. We've got 45 seconds left on the clock. Dillman, had that been the end of the race, would have been ahead by 1,000th of a second.
Noble, 4th to 2nd in one corner. Great move from Colin Noble. Absolutely magnificent stuff.
And down towards turn 3. Who's this from a long way back? It's Jakobsen. Jakobsen on Leo Weiss.
Team Tora there.
We've absolutely had to wait so long for this battling, but Weiss has no pace, it seems, and Weiss cannot hold the Team Tour car back either, driven by Michael Markussen.
It's real. It's Reiter from Nielsen Racing, from Racing Spirits of Le Mans, Cool Racing, Team Tour in a magnificent 5th position.
This is the final lap with 4 seconds left on the clock, and Tom Dillman rather disgruntled about being overtaken at the first corner when Colin Noble picked off 2 in one throw of the stone, wants that place back again. Jakobsen slightly more distant this time. Mads Seilerhaug has checked out, having lost time under the full course yellow. That gap went from about 2.5 seconds to 3.2, so I have no clue what was going on there with the limiters at 60 kph, but it hasn't affected Seilerhaug's run to the finish. What has happened to Leo Weiss? Is that a problem with the number 11 car, or
I think
just
they've got a penalty as well? I've just seen something flash up and then go away. There's been a penalty, I think, for the 11 car. It's not important at this moment. Mads Seilerhaug has got a gap. He is going to take the win here for Reiter Engineering.
At times this has been a horrible race to witness, but it's been an awesome run to the finish in the closing, 4 or 5 minutes that we had under green flag conditions, and it is Reiter Engineering with Freddie Hunt and Mads Seilerhaug who take the final victory of the year in the Michelin Le Mans Cup. Only half points awarded because of the distance covered. Colin Noble, an outstanding double overtake on the final lap down at turn 1. He gets second position for Nielsen Racing together with his teammate Tony Wells. Tom Dillman and Alex Matchell sign out in their championship year with a podium ahead of Malte Jakobsen and Maurice Smith in the number 69 Cool Racing car. 5th place for Team Tour. Auden Gudmundsson and Michael Markussen make the top 5 in car 77. We've also had the GT3 runners home when all that was kicking off, and here is the 51 Ferrari for Hiroshi Koizumi and closing driver Kei Cozzolino, finishing ahead of Jan Magnussen. Remember when Magnussen took the car over, I did suggest quite how far up the order he might be able to get. Well, it's second for the best placed GMB Motorsport machine number 88. Championship goes to GMB Motorsport and to car 55, Graham.
Yeah, Casper H. Jensen and Christian Poulsen. There is Christian, looking like he can't quite believe it, but they will be the championship winners. More importantly for the team, GMB Motorsports take the championship win, the automatic invitation to the Le Mans 24 Hours in the centenary year, and they will move to GTE next season, we believe, with an Aston Martin.
So it's going to be Christian Poulsen back in an Aston GTE car, and you think back to, well, by that point, 9 years ago, when he was a champion in the World Endurance Championship for Aston Martin with David Heinemeier Hansen. And I just wonder whether there's some concerned looks down at Reiter Engineering there at the screens. I don't think so. They're all busy celebrating. No. 20 laps we had in the end, 20 laps for a Michelin Le Mans Cup sprint. Confirmation of the team's championship, though, already sealed prior to coming here to Portimão. Alex Matchell, who started the number 10 car, and Tom Dillman.
Finished with a podium, but it's been a great result from them. It's, well, not the best race over an hour and 50 minutes, but it was one heck of a 5 minutes.
It really was.
And by the way, move of the race, Colin Noble.
Yeah. Agreed.
At the inside to take 2 positions, go from 4th to 2nd, as Tom Dillman and Malte Jakobsen were fighting it out. Colin Noble just took the opportunity, as it appeared before him, with a lunge, a very controlled lunge at that, by the way, up the inside to go from 4th to 2nd. Great stuff there from the AF Corse team. A win for this replacement team in the 51, and Kate Cozzolino correctly delighted with that, waiting for his teammate, I'm sure, to turn up before we see them on the podium.
And if you're unfamiliar with Hiroshi Koizumi, unfortunately we didn't get many racing laps for the 53-year-old from Kanagawa, but he has had many seasons in Super GT. At the GT level, you know, you've got the GT500s, which are the supersonic, like DTM type cars, and GT300, and he started racing in the championship in 2008 with Artec Motorsports. But this will be the first visit for Hiroshi into European-based ACO rules racing. He has done the Asian Le Mans series previously with KCMG. That's going back to 2013.
Oh, very early years then for KCMG, so that would have been back in the years with a GT car.
Yeah.
Paul Ipps' squad that's still out there and racing at the top level in GT3 racing. Were in the mix in a dramatic end to the Rolex 24 Hours this year, racing at the Nürburgring 24 Hours, the Spa 24 Hours. But there is the Reiter Engineering 76 team. Be interested to look back at some of the messages that were coming through like a ticker tape at one point. It seems to me, to be confirmed later, that if blame was assigned for that incident, it went the way of the 11.
Okay, which was Torsten Kratz at the time, the car taken over by Leo Weiss. And your point about that is, it shouldn't therefore affect the result that we have for Reiter Engineering, which is a win on the road. They may well look at what Freddie Hunt did and the indication that perhaps the start of the race had happened and then he had to leap on the anchors. All very messy, a horrible situation for us to witness, even worse for Jerome de Sadelier, who sadly is in hospital this morning rather. Feels like this afternoon. It's been a long morning and a long run to the checkered flag, but we're wishing Jerome de Sadelier the very, very best as he's being assessed, and hope that it's a quick recovery for him, but a nasty incident to watch, certainly. That's what it means to Mads Sillerhaug for Reiter Engineering. He'll have a chance to catch up with Freddie Hunt, who, of course, had that situation where he was sometimes out of the car, sometimes sitting in the car. Hiroshi Koizumi celebrating with Kai Cozzolino in their victory for the 51 Ferrari for AF Corse. But it's Ferrari from Honda.
That was Kai Cozzolino, not in his race suit.
Interesting. So did he in fact start the car? Yeah, weird. Anyway, some highlights to look back on. Some low lights as well, I'm afraid to say. This race really didn't get underway till about an hour and a half into it. But at 9 o'clock this morning, we did have the cars thundering their way down towards turn 1 with the sun glinting off the windshields. Bit of a lock-up mid-pack. John Brownson had to leap on the anchors, and then in the smoke here, Mark Crader going sideways and getting T-boned by Pietro Peccinini, which sadly would put the 73 TS Corsa car out of the race for a significant portion of time. Now, this was the horrible moment, the restart for Jerome de Sadeleer. Torsten Kratz, did he alter the speed at the head of the order? Freddie Hunt had to leap on the brakes, and in avoiding action, Jerome de Sadeleer smashing into that Armco barrier at the start of the pit lane, destroying the front of the number 29 MV2S Forestier racing car, and immediately to the medical centre and then flown to a local hospital for Jerome de Sadeleer. When we got going again, just about the first job for all of the teams was to dive in and do their driver change. They'd been issued new driving time limits. Ooh, Bill sideways moment there, which I don't remember in real time. Jonathan Brossard had already caused a safety car. This was the moment where there was a lead change in GT3, but it was assessed to be too forceful from the Bullet Racing Aston Martin, pitching Gunnar Jeanette into a spin. Then we had an even more brutal bit of contact at turn 13, which is Jeanette late on the brakes this time, smashing the side of Gustav Berg's car and putting him out of the race. The Mercedes would not rejoin either for Schnitzelarm Racing. What a dice we had in the closing stages, though. A late full course yellow, which would leave us with about 5 minutes of green flag racing. There was side-to-side contact almost there between Tom Dillman and the car of Malte Jakobsen. That was the lead change in LMP3, though, that put Mads Seilerhaug ahead of Tom Dillman. Colin Noble with an awesome double overtake down at turn number 1. But the win will go right at Engineering's way for half points at the end of the season. And in GT3, it's a debut victory for Hiroshi Koizumi and his teammate Kei Cozzolino in the AF Corsa run, number 51 Ferrari, as those cars headed into pit road and to the Parc Fermé quadrant right at the bottom of the podium. A race that will live long in the memory for many wrong reasons, but it's 20 laps that we get for the Michelin Le Mans Cup. Reiter Engineering winning by 2.5 seconds over Nielsen and Racing Spirit of Le Mans. Here's some reaction, first of all, from Mads Seilerhaug.
So I'm joined here by Mads, the winner in LMP3. I mean, finally, you got this victory, and what a victory it was here in Portimão. How do you feel?
I feel good, obviously, to finally get the win. But after what happened in the start of the race, it's a little by taste of the whole situation here. I hope it's going well with Sadeleer. So, no, but it's good to finally get this win in the end of the season. We really needed it for pushing through and creating more drive for the whole team for next year. So fantastic job by Freddie once again, and finally I could step up and do the last bit of the job there.
Just take us through the final battles in the last few laps of the race.
Yeah, I saw when we got this full course yellow that we were starting to catch up some GT cars, and I knew it was going to be some traffic and we're going to be tied together again. So then I just waited to see where you could go for a little attack, and then it all managed in the end.
It paid off. Thank you very much and well done.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah, at one point he got a decent lead of a second or so and could almost then measure that back, because they were all scrapping amongst themselves. Colin Noble did himself huge favours to vault up to second position at turn 1, but then 2.5 seconds was just a bit too much to close up. Racing Spirit of Le Mans closed their championship year with a 3rd place ahead of Cool Racing's Malte Jakobsen, the car he shares with Maurice Smith, and Michael Markussen and his teammate Auden Gudmundsson make the top 5 as mentioned for Team Tour. It's a victory in GT3 for AF Corsa for the 2 Japanese drivers, Cozzolino and Koizumi, and GMB Motorsports' Jan Magnussen, the 88 car, finishing ahead of the championship winners, number 55. So they do get points for third place. That could have been slightly more complicated had there been full championship points on offer. It probably wouldn't have been the 55 to take the victory, but because only half points available, then the 55 was sufficiently ahead, 18 points with an advantage after 5 races to this point. Podium being readied. Again, this has been rather hurriedly arranged. The drivers are now arriving. Tom Dillman, the first to creep through, shot there. Colin Noble as well.
He'll be chuffed to bits with
sure
that.
He will.
That
big smile on his face.
Well, basically 5th to 2nd in about a lap and a half from Colin. Tom Dillman there gets a bit of a drink of water. Alex Jensen and Jan Magnussen. The mass ranks of the Danes arrive.
So Lars Engelbrecht Pedersen, who started the 88 car, sharing it with Jan Magnussen. And Lars Pedersen, you can see there chatting to Jan, the taller of the two, on the right. Discussion still going on in the background between Tony Wells, Colin Noble's teammate, about exactly how he managed to pull off that amazing manoeuvre down at turn number 1. Tom Dillman's there, Alex Matchell in the back of shot as well. And of course, Mads Selahaug will not be very far away, having just had a conversation with Haley Edmonds. Freddie Hunt, in fact, now chatting to his Norwegian teammate.
Yeah, Mads Selahaug, been quite the revelation this year at Le Mans, and defending a lead there. Most of us looking on thought, well, this is it. There's some very quick guys behind him. The game's up for the 76. It wasn't. And another great control drive there in that sprint to the finish. All sorts going on there.
And Mads has been doing all sorts of different racing through the years. His connections with Reiter Engineering means that he's been doing some development work with KTM and True Racing as well, racing at the Nürburgring 24 hours. But, yeah, and you know, a number of teams in recent years have been making the jump from the Nürburgring to either the Michelin Le Mans Cup or indeed to the ELMS as well. And long may that continue.
A significant part of the growth of this series has been that community coming here.
Yeah. So we've heard from one of the winners in LMP3. We heard from Freddie Hunt earlier on in the piece as well, but it's perhaps an unexpected win for AF Corse. We're going to head for the champions, though, at GMB Motorsport.
Well, Christian, probably not the final race you'd have wanted, but you are crowned Michelin Le Mans Cup Champions 2022. How does it feel?
Yeah, it was a strange race. I don't know what to say. It's this year has been tough with the hard racing and all the safety cars and full course yellows and But we won the championship and entry for Le Mans next year, so that's good. And but it's not the most fun race to drive.
That's right, but it's a well-merited victory, overall victory for you guys, and of course you've got the entry for Le Mans next year. Yeah, that was the purpose in the Le Mans Cup to get the entry, and now we're looking forward to get started with that. Fantastic, thank you very much, and congratulations. Thanks.
Well, it's a team associated with Honda brand, but they won't be able to take the Honda brand to Le Mans. Nevertheless, great.
That is the final team points championship standings. 109 points, comfortable win eventually for the 55 car, ahead of the 88 and the 44 for GMB Motorsport Bullet Racing. Come home a fine 4th in their first season in the Michelin Le Mans Cup, and this is the overall podium, Johnny.
So there's Alex Matchell and Tom Dillman to the 3rd step of the podium. They'll be getting a much bigger trophy later tonight in a huge glass perspex dome which has been assembled here at the Algarve International Circuit. So the presentations for the championships will be done here on site this evening. Second place going to Colin Noble and Tony Wells. Tony Wells almost a bit daunted by the fact that they finished second because of a phenomenal overtake for his teammate. But it's a win for Reiter Engineering. Here is the national anthem. from start to finish, the national anthem of Germany for Reiter Engineering, and a win for the UK and for Norway in the form of Freddie Hunt and Mads Sillehaug. Representative from the team joins them on the top step of the podium as well, and the trophies about to be presented to those top 3 drivers. There they are, bottles of champagne to be sprayed in a short while as well. A pretty bizarre race, only 20 laps, and the most unusual opening stint for all of those drivers sitting in their cars for the best part of 90 minutes. And didn't get any race action after that, in fact, because it was all safety car up to those first stops.
Yeah, it's a unique Michelin Le Mans Cup finale, and let's hope it stays that way. And, there you go, championship form there from Tony Wells, immediately on it with the champagne.
Well, it's been a long season. They were champions, of course, remember, so they are giving up their trophy, if you like, although they will always remain Michelin Le Mans Cup champions for 2021, and I'm sure they will be thinking about another attack at this title for next year too. But it's been a trying year at times for Nielsen Racing. Didn't necessarily have the consistency in the following year to defend their championship, but there's plenty of fire in the belly from both Tony Wells and Colin Noble, as just demonstrated. Racing Spirit of Le Mans clinch the title on 97 points then from Reiter Engineering, 73, and it is Nielsen Racing on 55 ahead of the Cool Racing duo of Malte Jakobsen and Maurice Smith.
One good thing about this, titles were not settled because it was half points, Johnny.
Yeah.
The titles went the way effectively they should have gone on form, and not because of misfortune elsewhere. Yes, we could call the 55 as champions at the point at which the race had got beyond a certain point, but they would have taken it in any case on the full points total. Quite a season in Michelin Le Mans Cup, huge depth as we see the drivers' points confirmed for Alexander Matschall and Tom Dillman ahead of Freddie Hunt, Mads Sillehaug, Tony Wells and Colin Noble. Huge depth in the LMP3 squads and impressive competition as well in a GT3 field that was not that deep but pretty well perfectly formed.
And some reaction now, speaking of GT cars, of the win in isolation. We've heard from the championship winners, GMB Motorsport, but AF Corsa win the race. Here is one of their drivers now with Haley.
So, Kay, what a way to end the season here in Portimão. Just tell us about that race. It was a complicated one. How was it for you?
Well, pretty much the race was neutralized when the crash happened. So it was like pretty much a sprint race for all of us. We all equally exited the pit. So elbows out, we went all out. Strangely, the Aston Martin, originally they were behind us. Somehow they're in front of us. And I knew that he had more pace. So I was like, okay, I can't win against him. But he hit the Mercedes, he got the drive-thrus. From there, I just had to defend.
And then you went all out and you made it to the finish.
Yeah, I mean, I had Magnussen just right on my tail. He was pushing super hard. And I had already 4 track limits. And I had a final warning, so I had to really be careful with my margins. But anyway, super happy.
Well done. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Well, we know for a fact it was Kate Cozzolino at the wheel of the car then in that second stint.
Absolutely.
Quite how he jumped out of the car and was in his civvies within moments, no idea.
By the way, impressive form to have 4 track limits in about 5 minutes.
Well, yeah, you've got them, you might as well use them, as long as you don't use your 5th. Here's the national anthem for AF Corsa. So Hiroshi Koizumi and Kei Cozzolino are the winners for AF Corsa, another AF Corsa victory to add to their many with the Ferrari 488 GT3, an outgoing Ferrari 488 GT3. I think certainly in the case of AF Corsa, who will have some very nice brand new 296s.
296 GT3s?
For the new year, yeah.
Yep, those cars being produced now for the early season running in all sorts of racing. Expect to see them in just about everything that accepts GT3. One more year, of course, for the 488 GTE. It's after that, it'll be GT3 everywhere.
Well done, by the way, to Jan Magnussen and Lars Engelbrecht Pedersen, who finish in second position, and the duo on the right of shot from car 55 for an early celebration for their championship victory. Christian Poulsen, who we heard from, and Casper H. Jensen. Again, they will be getting their big trophy later this evening, together with a little envelope attached, which will be an automatic invitation to the 100th anniversary year of the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 2023. It goes to GMB Motorsport. A real troubled race at times. Thank you for sticking with us for the duration, if you have done. If you went away and came back again, hopefully you were around for that grandstand finish, not only in LMP3 but also GT3. That accident does not make any happier viewing the more times you see it for Jerome de Sadelier, and our best wishes going to him right now for his quick recovery. My thanks to Graham Goodwin. Join us for a slightly delayed ELMS race later on today. 1:30 start. Will be on air at 1:10 for the build-up. Bye for now.